was in New York 27 years.
Yeah.
Completely programmed as a lefty. I'm understanding that a lot of that programming right now is leading to an educational system that is very socialist and is being misused.
BTC, be the change. The change you wish to see in the world. Well, if you want the world to change, you need to start here.
The interesting thing is this, is like we can always overcome things when we are aware of them. You put light to something and there's no more darkness, period. All you have to do is confront it. Oh, big deal. You got to confront the fear. I had a studio at the World Trade Center as an artist, 91st floor. And it was my intuition that led me to get out of the building. And I went to bed next morning. The whole thing happened.
So you left the day before?
The night before, 4 hours before.
Wow, holy shit. That
event happened. I had the video. And I named the video, You Don't Die the Day of the Eve. Because it was not my day. To understand the meaning of life, the reality, it's through mythology. And the Greeks gave us the myth. Right. And so astrology is a language to decipher where we're at.
I don't even think human consciousness can be what it is without mythology.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like they co-evolve.
But that's why Jung called it archetypes. I do see hope despite the craziness. But we got to do the work.
Got to do the work. Wow, that is a beautiful story. In Bitcoin, we often dream about the idea of forming citadels, which are independent, self-sovereign communities that have their own energy, food, and water resources. Today, that dream is becoming a reality at the farm at Okefenokee. The farm is a 705-acre regenerative agriculture community located at the Florida-Georgia line near Folkston, Georgia. The farm is known as the healthiest place on earth, and it includes orchards, organic standing gardens, regenerative animal pastures, berry fields, and much, much more. Today, the farm features 25 custom-built cabins and has plans to construct 225 more in the years ahead. The farm has its own food, energy, and water sources and is completely off-grid. So if you're looking to join a citadel community comprised of sovereign individuals, then go to okefarm.com today to learn more about membership. Make sure to tell them that I sent you for a $21,000 discount on custom cabin pricing. Again, that's okefarm.com to learn more about joining this revolutionary regenerative agriculture community. We met at Bitcoin Day in Miami.
Yes.
That was the first time we met in person. Yeah. You were just saying that I had written or podcast. How were you introduced to me?
To you? Okay. So I moved to Miami Beach in 2020. Okay. And I had heard about Bitcoin, but I wanted to understand about it in a way that I could relate to it. So I didn't really read anything, and it was one article. I think you were on Medium at the time, not Substack, but Medium. And it was that article about time.
Bitcoin and the tyranny of time scarcity.
Yes, because my work is about time. I'm here trying to define what time and space are, and where does my memory really relates, and see if I'm going to understand my reality. Mm-hmm. And so I was very connected to it. And there was something else that connected to me was your last name. I have a funky last name as well. My name is Bravo, so I had a lot of people making fun of me. Bravo. Yeah. And then I was like, wow, I wonder what people did to Robert when he was little, because it's a beautiful last name.
Thank you. It was in 3rd grade. My last name is Breedlove. They used to call me Robert Booty Love, which is hilarious because I've grown up and now I'm marrying a woman with the last name Booty of all last names, which is really interesting. So they made fun of me, and then the kids that made fun of me, they had very normal last names like Smith and Hansen. Yeah. So I remember being a kid, I was just infuriated, and I had no comebacks, and it was just
Yeah, you learn to be more resilient with that kind of because it's just every day, and so I connected to that, and also because the meaning of it is quite beautiful. It's just like you're seeding something that it's so important in the world. It's love. And, more than just romantic love or the love that you have for your parents or your children, is that ability that we have really to connect to something bigger, our spirit.
Yeah.
So that's what really, I was like, oh, I like this. And so I read it. And then I think after a while, you launch your podcast. And I was just there every day, all the time. Actually, I went back a couple of days ago to see, because I used to have one of those Facebook groups before I opened my Substack and everything. And I started telling people in that group, it was called We Are the Architects of Time. This is during the pandemic. And I was telling people like, yo, you have to really listen to this guy. So one of the first ones that really got me is with Jonathan Pijot.
Oh, yeah.
Because I did a lot of work with Vervaeke, Peterson, Pijot. Like I was in a group called Rebel Wisdom, and we were all meeting online and having dialogue, understanding what circling is, nonviolent communication. I was learning a lot of tools about how to interact with others.
Yeah.
That they were different from where I was coming from, because I was in New York 27 years.
Yeah.
Completely programmed as a lefty. Completely.
It's good to be able to admit that, right? That this is the human superpower, that we're all programmable, actually, right? We're highly adaptive, especially cognitively. We're very flexible, so we can adapt to different situations. But if you don't have that realization of the human superpower, then we often end up getting programmed by, mainstream media or propaganda or any other ideology, basically. But once you do have that realization, you're equipped to self-actualize, right? That you can actually start choosing what books you read, what activities you engage in, who you spend time with, and you actually take responsibility and autonomy for programming yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the whole...
Yeah, and that's the difference between schooling and education. I know that you recently had a podcast with one of my new, he's like mentoring me a lot because I'm subscribed, is Lindsay James.
Yeah, James Lindsay.
Oh, yeah, he's fascinating.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is I still haven't not processed that. So I grew up in a family where men left because they died. So they were grandmother widow, mother widow. Very entrepreneurship. Like they were making things up. They were educators, progressive. So that's the interesting thing. Progressive educators, admirers in putting the methodology of somebody called Montessori and John Dewey. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, John Dewey's American Pragmatist.
Okay, so this is interesting thing. So my mom used to talk about democracy and all that, and I was like, what? But then I grew up like in her school. She opened a school. And she taught me to be critical about my thinking. She taught me to go and pursue what I like. So in a way, I'm coming to terms right now because I'm understanding that a lot of that programming right now is leading to an educational system that is very socialist and it's been misused. I'm not saying John Dewey did everything bad, but I'm saying like, Mom, everything's like, what the hell? I thought this was different. But then the interesting thing, and I'm writing about in my book, is like, how do you come to terms with one part of yourself that grew up with the idea of capitalism being like, wake up in the morning, go to work, do everything in a way that is good for you, for your family, for society, and you're actually contributing voluntarily to the progress and innovation of your own clan or your own city or whatever. But it is something that is very personal. It's not something out there, transpersonal. Right. The collective is very socialist. They're always talking about somebody that you don't know by name.
Yeah, the ephemeral greater good, right? That's what always bothers me about that ideology. Well, a number of things bother me about it, but one, the argument always appeals to the greater good or society as like some ephemeral collective, and it's like, so we need to violate your freedoms and your rights and your property right here and now to benefit some other. But it's never defined, right? Like the violation is very well defined. It's like you are going to be stolen from, but the benefit is very diffuse, right? You don't know where it is. And so the quote that I like around that is that if it requires the labor of another person, it cannot be a human right, right? No. If you define a right as a moral or legal entitlement, no one has a moral or legal entitlement to the labor of anyone else.
Yeah,
right?
that's stealing.
It's stealing, right? So, and that is the foundation of socialism, right? It's like some will work and pay for, from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Obviously, that's like the Marxist extreme, but that's basically what it is. It's
and I grew up with that. Like now I'm remembering, because my mom, for instance, like I said from the very beginning, I want this and that. I'm very attached to beautiful things. I'm a Taurus, so I like nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to acquire things not because I want to hoard, but I want to be able to enjoy this beautiful material life that we are. The earth is beautiful.
It's an expression of human creativity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, but my mom is like, you want to work? Okay, you got to think about something. So very early on, I learned how to read and write really early. And I learned to speak many languages by the age of 9 or 10. And so, and I'm very fast in my mind. So she would say, come up with an idea and I'll pay you. And then I'll put the money inside and then you can travel. So a lot of my travels that I did alone when I was 12, 13, 14 is work that I earned when I was little. Obviously, my mom paid me much more than I needed to.
Yeah.
So I had a job of teaching other people how to read. Then I upgraded into, with an old machine, like reproducing whatever her books. Then I told my mom, why don't we buy like a printing press? We bought one and she sent me to a place. I was 10 years old with my brother to learn how to print. And so she had this she was very close to this innovation. She also had a lot of acquiring in her chart. But this is the interesting thing. At one point, she felt guilty that she was not giving the same to my siblings. So this idea of democracy of John Dewey came in. So I remember one trip, I had really worked my ass off. And my mom and my brother failed a year. And he was on the same trip. I was going to go to Europe for the first time. And I was like, Mom. And she goes, I can't do this. So that's the thing that I learned. Like, earn your living, but at the same time, this socialist agenda. So that's where I'm right now going like, and she died almost a year ago. So I talked to her every day. It's like, and then she laughs and she goes, well, you have to decipher it now.
Yeah.
There's a middle way.
Yeah.
There's always a middle way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, and this is where maybe socialism successfully hijacks people and gets them to buy into it, is it because it does not only exist, but it is almost the only thing that works at the family level. Like, you're not going to always say, I don't charge my daughter for breakfast, right? It's like you're socialist with her, you're communist, frankly. Your property is her property, but more obviously that you're kind of the state in her life too, right? Like you are, as a parent, you are legally coercing your children with the aim of sculpting them into rational adults, right? Where they can go and be on their own. So there is this like element of socialism at the micro scale that exists in every family, basically,
or clan, but
cannot exist at scale, because when you have it at scale, there's no incentive to work and there's incentives to steal, and it doesn't work.
So this is interesting because at one point when I'm going to do the reading, I'm going to talk about a paradigm that is called human design, which is like the energy in everybody's body as it was when you were born. And it shows there are 3 different streams of energy that we have. One is individual. So this is this urge for each person to individuate, to find his own path, to be authentic, to have the courage to go and show up. And this is, some charts have a lot of that, like I do. Like I'm very much about my own person. But then there's other part, which is the extent, like after the individual, there's the family, the clan, or the tribe. And this is where we're coming from right now. We're coming from like a very like tight tribal situation where, I mean, you just see it right now on Twitter, like everybody's,
especially in election season.
Oh my God. It's like, everybody's like really very close to those ideologies, and tribes are really functioning according to the ideology that really works for them. So they can be saying that the sky is red, and if they're convincing, that's what they're going to do. And they're going to just go and be loyal to whoever is, at the top. So in your chart, for instance, there's a lot of tribal energy, but your scope in the tribe is actually to bring people to a place where they value themselves. You're not supposed to direct them. You're not supposed to manage them. You're not supposed to manage their treasury. No. There's an energy that comes from the root chakra, and then I'll show you the chart, where it goes to the spleen. The spleen, well, the chart is here. And the spleen is that immunological center that is going to tell you with your instincts what is it right or wrong. So you do have like an incredible sense of smell. I don't know if you can smell bullshit from afar.
Well, I think I do like to think that I have a good bullshit detector, but I think a lot of people think that. So I don't know if
Well, maybe people from your generation, a lot of people have Pluto in 44, and that's very specific. They do have, but what happens to your chart is that it's connected to another center that is the center of the heart. And the heart is the will center. So there's one gate, there's the 26, that is actually the guardian of who can come in. So 44 is saying, oh, we're all fractals, we're all friends, hold hands, have a party. And then the 26 is the bouncer at the discotheque going like, I don't think so. And I always say that, like, I lived in the 80s in Paris, and I used to go to this discotheque. To the best bouncer, he used to give you a mirror and says, would you let yourself in?
That's awesome.
So you kind of do the same. It's like you meet a lot of people. You're very much like surrounded by people, but then there's a moment that you know who is able to come into this place because they have a sense of value.
Yes. Okay.
And value is very important.
Yes. Well, absolutely. It is that which all human action is aimed, is that value. And no, I think that resonates with me. I do have this sort of hypercritical, hyper-judgmental side of myself that can be strength or weakness, right? In certain settings, it's like, it's too much. You're like, well, just tone it down. But then if in other settings, like trying to run a business, it's like, well, it's discernment. It's actually very useful.
Absolutely. And you have it in your chart because in your chart, a lot of the planets,
this keeps pinging me.
Yes.
So before we get into that and I lose it, you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation that you are, and I guess this is part of your book, that you're trying to understand the ontological basis for space and time. Yeah. If I understood that correctly.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about that a little bit because I'm actually writing something about it right now.
Good.
Oh man, it's a big one. So the working hypothesis is something like this, that space is the moment of perception, basically, right? Like all perception occurs in space. It doesn't occur anywhere else, frankly. So that's real, right? That's the matrix of quote unquote objective reality. But then time, actually, we don't ever observe time. We don't ever perceive time. We only conceive of past and future. These are ideas. These are conceptions. They're imaginal constructs, cognitive constructs, whatever you want to call it. So my working, and the interesting thing here, we always talk about time in terms of space. So the piece that I'm writing has to do a lot with metaphor.
Yes.
And so a metaphor is, you talk about a target domain in terms of a source domain. Yeah. So we often say things like, there's a conceptual metaphor, for instance, argument is war, right? So he attacked my position, or her position was indefensible, or, I'm gaining a lot of ground. Like we describe arguments as if they are war, even though it's not, argument is not armed conflict, yet we use these metaphors to describe it. We use the metaphor of space to describe time, right? Your time is up. There's a few weeks between sessions, the week after next, maybe that's not the right one, but we describe time as if it were a spatial construct. So my working hypothesis is that space is the only thing we actually perceive. And then everything that we conceive comes from what we perceive, right? We construct all of our language and our thoughts metaphorically from space. And so time is like the original conception, if you will. Okay. It's the idea we have that is the flow of events. Okay. And then with that idea, we get causality, we get human action. Like I can now choose how to intervene in the flow of events and change them. And so there's this metaphorical.
It's nice that you go in there, and it's not coincidence that I'm here today in that sense. So I started the book with a very beautiful drawing here because it's very illustrated and it's showing you, I don't know if you can read it, but it shows you the quadrivium. The quadrivium is a term that it was used in the Middle Ages. That is the four way. There's four ways. And Plato and the Greeks.
Oh, I have this book actually.
You probably
Quadrivium,
yeah. Yeah, the quadrivium, yeah. So the quadrivium means that there are four ways.
Arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy. Yeah.
So you're talking about space, like the measure of space is geometry. But first we have to start with numbers. And the Greeks knew and accepted that a priori everything is connected.
Yes. Yes.
This is us in the Middle Ages when they created the division and they added the other three, the trivium, trivium.
Yeah. I have that one as well. It's 2 books.
So, but they added because that's the way you study. So the thing is this: it's like the Greeks. I love the Greeks. I lived in Greece.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from being with Greek people because it's like normal for them to be that weird, and so I ended up learning a lot about the mythology, learning Greek.
Yes.
So I speak Greek, not perfect, but I do speak. I laugh sometimes when people use terminologies in English and they kind of, and I go like, why are they saying kairos? It's keros, So I make fun of that. But anyway, that's my critical. I also have very critical. So the interesting thing is this, it's like they see the world in a way that it's already all connected. And there's certain bodies that you cannot see, feel, or sense. And you talk about perception, which is great, but in our bodies right now, we have the senses. We have 5 senses that are actually a part of our GPS to understand the sense of smell, the sense of sight, the sense of taste, the sense of touch, and the sense of hearing. So we have that, and that also allows us to give us some parameters of where you are in space. Okay. Right. Now, we also have the emotional body, and that doesn't live in our bodies. It can stay in our bodies when we have PSDT and trauma. And by the way, everybody right now alive has a sort of PSDT. Something, a divorce, an accident from the grandfather, losing something in school and becoming everybody.
Right, because growth is traumatic inherently.
Yeah, it's pain. And and the origin of the word trauma, it's pain in Greek. Suffering. Yes. Like the Buddha said also that life is suffering.
Which is also the origin of the word price, interestingly enough. Pain. It's like pain.
Yeah, it's like what you give. I don't
the price you pay.
I don't like to use the word. I try to be positive. So because, oh my God, words, I'm so precise with them, but right now they're being stained, the meaning of them. So I was trying to look for a word that it's better than suffering and sacrifice, sacrifice. And so I found and I do that every morning, I do offerings. When you offer something, you're actually willingly.
Right, consensual.
And say, okay, I'm going to go through this program.
Yes.
I'm going to go fasting. I'm offering that
training,
to my
discipline,
body.
Something like that.
And then people go oh my God, aren't you sacrificing I don't know, a brownie? You go no, because I'm offering something else. And so you don't feel that you're missing something or you're losing something. You're actually going to another space that you didn't know that existed for you because you're actually crossing that line. Yeah. So going back to the quadrivium, this is interesting because the numbers are the base of everything. This is really, you cannot change the numbers. The numbers alone, they have a symbology, they serve a purpose. But then when you start putting together 1 + 1, then you get to 2, and then you draw a line between one another, that's what Plato was so fascinated with the solids, because he was trying to understand space. Because geometry is about space, it's measuring space. And then came Pythagoras. Actually, he came before. And Pythagoras says oh my God, everything is connected. Yeah. And we have harmonics. Yeah. And we have sound. We are energy. And we are resonated at different wavelengths. So sometimes when we resonate, we go oh my God, you're so cool. And when we are in dissonance, we're oh, that person's a jerk. Something like that. So we're always living in different wavelengths. And sometimes in life, we find that way of synchronizing. I don't know if it's a word in Spanish. You synchronizing or tuning into something. It's the same. I mean, you were old enough to know what the radio was with AM and FM. So it's a little bit like that. And so harmonics has been given to us. The beauty of harmonics is music, but there's more to harmonics than just the music. It's a it's a celebration. But if you start working with harmonics and understanding how they work. For instance, I also know how to read financial charts because it's pure harmonics. I've never traded a cent in my life, and I don't think I will ever. But I know how to buy the dip because I know how to read those things. And there is just reading the cycles. And we're going to talk about it because right now, Bitcoin is about to go to another cycle next year. It's never been there. Yeah. Like that. So, So the third one is harmonics. And the last one is what I call the validator. It's astronomy/astrology. Okay. Because every day the sun comes out. Depending where you are, you know that it will come at 6 or at 7. If you're in the tropics, it's always at the same time. The moon goes around every 28 point something days. Mercury is 88 days, and so on and so forth. Venus is 224. Mars is 686. Saturn is 29 years. Jupiter is every 12. And then you go on and on and on. And then when you start seeing those cycles come again, they mean something. The potential of us to understand the meaning of life, the reality, it's through mythology. And the Greeks gave us the myth.
Right.
And so astrology is a language to decipher where we're at. Like, okay, you're born in 19, blah, blah, blah. I'm born, ta, ta, ta. And then these cycles are happening. And I know you just did it because I listened to it about the fourth turning.
Yes, Brandon Quittem.
Yeah, it came out yesterday. And obviously, when you study all this and you see the fourth turning, you go, yeah, right. Uranus cycles every 83 years. And we're going through a very important cycle right now. It's the end, like two very big ones. The Pluto return is 248 years. That was the Revolution of America, French Revolution, the beginning of the Industrial Age, the beginning of slavery in another way.
That is the fourth turning then, right? That orbit of Pluto. Interesting. Okay.
And then 165 years is the orbit of Neptune. And right now it's at 29 degrees. This is the last of Pisces. This is the last degree of the turn. And Pisces is about going back to source, to God, whatever you call spirit. But it's also about illusion and delusion. So the amount of delusion that we have right now is like, actually in your chart, you have your moon, your identity confronted. So your task right now is to see what is real or not with that discernment that you have, not judgment, discernment. So we are all in that together right now. So some people have chosen not to get on the boat and they actually want to sink their boat. Let them. That's their choice. I was trying to save them a while ago and I was like, oh, that's a waste of time. But I will always be open for the people who actually want to find like where they're at, because that's one of my purpose, not just be an artist, but, you know, do this and reaffirm certain things that people already know. That's what astrology does.
Wow. Fascinating. No, that's great. And it's, so again, modern, there's a number of things. In the modern era, we have made the word myth synonymous with untruth, which is seriously problematic because mythology is very, I mean, even this week we were alluding earlier to ideologies. It's like those are mythologies, basically. Like if you think you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever, it's like you're living a mythology. That's what it is. It's a story you inhabit and you integrate into your own mind and your own patterns of action. That is basically a mythology. That's how mythology works. So a long time ago when Jordan Peterson said we all live in stories, like just on the surface, I was like, oh, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, of course, everything is a sequence of events. Everything's a story. But it's like, no, there's a much deeper meaning than that. It's, you know, again, we are these rational animals that are running cognitive software, but that software is at least integrated to the culture we inhabit.
Absolutely.
And so that is where mythology acts as kind of like this external hard drive to our RAM and between our ears.
Conditioned and shaped by it.
Yes.
Unknowingly when you're a child.
Yes.
And you choose as a soul, I believe in reincarnation, so you choose the perfect condition.
Right.
To work on your stuff.
So there's this modern issue of like we regard mythology as something that's, you know, untrue or a fairy tale or whatever, when in fact it is you're looking at like the deepest operating components of being human in a way. Like I don't even think human consciousness could be what it is without mythology. Oh, absolutely. It's like they co-evolve essentially.
But that's why Jung call it archetypes, which is the primal type form.
Articulations of the instincts, right? Or the primal drives.
Yes.
And so, you can get into Jungian psychology about it. The other thing I wanted to mention though is astrology is often or almost universally put into this bucket of it's a pseudoscience or not even a pseudoscience. Like it's like bullshit, French. Basically. But the reality is it's actually one of the oldest sciences, as you've touched on here.
Yes.
And I don't know a lot about astrology. Obviously, we're going to talk about it today. I think it's interesting. Like I'm always weary to dispense with things that are ancient because the principle of the Lindy effect. Like if it's been around this long and it's lasted this long, maybe there's some things you don't know about it that are very important, right? So astrology definitely fits that bill. Like I don't know too much about it, but it's been around for so long that maybe there's something to it. The other thing that I think is interesting is in my coming into this world of intellectual fascination was initially through the portal of astrophysics. And so one of the things I learned very early on in astrophysics is that actually all of the heavy elements in the universe are manufactured in the hearts of stars.
Yes.
So everything above, I think it's hydrogen, helium? I think everything heavier than helium
yes.
does not exist in the universe until it grows in the heart of a star.
Inside
and that star goes supernova and seeds the universe with heavier elements.
Yeah.
We are carbon-based life forms. We're
carrying those neutrinos, they're called. We're carrying everything.
Yeah, we are animated stardust, basically.
Yeah.
So, you might say it's some kind of tenuous relationship. Like, how could the motions of the cosmos affect our personality or who we are? I would argue, how could they not? Like, we are literally made of those materials.
Absolutely.
All of the actual movements, drive the waves of the ocean and all the energy that's flowing through us. Like, of course, there has to be some influence. Have we perfectly, rigorously deduced it into the science called astrology? I don't know. Maybe not. But maybe there are some observations that we've accumulated over time that are accurate and useful.
But there were, before Copernicus, and I think it was 15th century, I'm not sure, in the 1530s, around. Before that, astrology and astronomy were the same.
That's right.
It was the same. There was no people were like everybody who's very cultivated in many ways. They knew everything about the quadrivium.
Yeah.
Because scholars they were given the information by their masters, by their teachers. They didn't go to Amazon to buy a book. They were like the lineage. And I understood, I learned a lot about lineage because I did study with a Taoist teacher for 12 years. And you basically, what you do is you surrender your ignorance to being surrounded by some sort of cosmology that is being taught to you through martial arts, in my case, like Tai Chi and Qigong, and how the planets work according to the Chinese. So I was always fascinated. And that was like the beginning of me understanding, like trying to say that there's something bigger than me that makes sense. And it's actually logical, because a lot of people think that these things are not logical, but these are made out of numbers.
Yeah, even that word logical comes from logos.
Logos, that's part of it.
Which means the word or ratio, and all of these celestial movements are ratios, right? It's all rational.
Yeah.
And so this is the other thing. It's like the things like the Bible, right? In the beginning was the Word, God. Well, the Word was God, and the Word was with God. The word translates from logos. Like, these are very fundamental statements about the nature of reality, that it's not just human. We think rational. We've reduced rational to like computational or something, but it's not that.
But it's the same
encoded.
Word. Rational is a ratio is the equivalent in Latin from logos in Greek. And logos is more than reason. It's more than the word. It's been translated as a word or a verb.
Yeah.
Which I think I mentioned this in the place that we met. I did a piece for the Vatican that is called Archetypes, the word beyond sense, because you cannot, like, words are very important to describe a reality, but depending where you're at in relationship to that knowledge.
Yes.
So you define it according to your...
Words are ratios too.
Yes.
Right? When you take a definition of a word, there's several other words behind it.
Yeah.
You're putting them in ratio to one another.
In
and then each one of those
yeah.
words that defines it, you have to further chase its definition. Eventually you get to what's called an ostensive definition, which is like phone.
Yeah.
Someone physically shows you the thing, and that's how you index that word. But then we scaffold up into higher meaning.
And the logos is part of the other trivium. So we have, we mentioned arithmetic, geometry, harmonics, and astronomy as the base. Like, that's what Pythagoras, Plato, and everything said. Oh, you want to bullshit, like philosophy? You want to really talk about this?
Yes.
You got to know what the other for.
Right.
And then with time, they just added logic, rhetoric, and grammar.
Yes.
So these are actually helping to understand this reality in the Middle Ages, when you have more access to books and you have scholars actually going deeper into the sense of reality. Funny thing is, instead of broadening and opening, they actually went and divided everything. And that's the joke. It's like the ancestors had it, and we're here trying to make it better.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And I think, so those all fall into the domain of rationalism, really, right? It's mathematics, logic, rhetoric, I think you said.
Yeah.
The other one that I find fascinating is that I think Austrian economics belongs there because it's
Praxeology.
Praxeology. That's the one the Greeks maybe missed. They missed a couple of things. They missed the number 0 too, because Pythagoras thought that all number was shape.
Yes.
Right. And so the fact that number was shape meant that the existence of no shape couldn't exist.
The thing is that you cannot give a wavelength to 0.
Yes, right. Exactly.
And so his take is like, okay, it is music it's resonance and is a wavelength. So when you start in 0, you end in 0. So there's no beginning or end. So that's like basically almost like we say that 1 is everything, but 0 will be equivalent to what the Zen and the Buddhists call like emptiness, which is everything.
Yes.
There's no emptiness in emptiness. There's actually the whole totality of everything.
Yes. Yeah. And 0 to the 0th power is 1, right?
Yes. So it's interesting because people start like that. But I mean, I call myself, I'm an artist, multidisciplinary, but I call myself a polymath because I realize that I am so interested in different kind of ideas and I educate myself. Like I'm a self-taught person. And one of the words that always struck me is like mathematikos is not pertaining only to the numbers. It pertains to the knowledge of things. So when you are a polymath, it means that you know a little bit, a lot about many, many things. And that's a kind of education that we don't have these days. You go to school and they say you have to be this and that. And at the end, you don't know that these two things are connected because you can see them. So I'm more like open. That costs me problems sometimes to communicate because people just like, what are you talking about?
They can't put you in a bucket. Yeah.
And I'm like, everything is connected.
But we've taken the universality out of the university, right? Because that's what a university means, right?
Yes,
you study all the things.
And see and then be there. So yeah. So I mean, there's a lot there. My journey of individuation, like it became really conscious after like 10 years ago when I decided to start like getting out of the system because I realized that I was living in New York in the 2010s. It started becoming like this thing as like, fake it till you make it. I started seeing it in others and in me. And this is interesting. I'm very critical as well. And what I've used with being critical is I use it every time I see something that I don't like. Instead of staying there like, I do shadow work. I go like, okay, Monika, over here, let's have a talk. Like, what is it about Robert that you hate? Well, and then at the end I said, okay, let's just change Robert for Monika. And then I go like, so then what I do is I integrate that what is missing.
Yeah.
And then I said, what can I do in order to integrate that? Because I'm criticizing something that I see in you. I mean, I'm saying you right now, but it could be anybody that I don't have. And I want so bad that instead of saying, hey, I don't have that, is I don't like you.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're almost, that's fascinating. There's so much there too about how your conception of a person influences your perception, right? The actual story. This is just a personal example, but we were moving into this house and Laren found these very nice dishes that I had. And basically how we got on this conversation, she found these dishes. She's like, well, where did he get these? Because I know he's not a cooker. He doesn't like to cook that much. So why would he buy a bunch of these fancy dishes? She starts thinking, oh, maybe there was some other woman that bought these for him. She goes, but the story she had already cultivated about me in her mind was like, no, I would have told her that because we've been building our relationship on radical truth. So she's like, no, that can't be it either. There must be another explanation. And so she came to me and asked, and it was like, it turns out my stepdad, his mother was like giving away a lot of her stuff and he had given me these dishes. And so that's why I had them. And she's like, it was interesting because if we didn't have radical truth in our relationship, then that conception I had of you would have run away. And I would have started thinking these negative. And so it's like the story that we frame, it's like the story is the interpretive schema by which we filter perception data or sense data, if you will. And you are in control of the story that you put
if you're
on the
aware.
wall. If you're aware of how this works. Otherwise, you're just this unconscious victim to it. Not victim.
No. You're a victim of your stories.
Yes, you're a victim of your stories.
Because you cannot actually,
you're a slave to your stories, basically. But you get to choose the stories that you put onto the world.
Because you actually believe your parents, you believe your church, you believe your school, you believe your friends, you believe the government, you believe. And so you're like almost like aimlessly going with the blob. Like, you're just like, like
the
that.
herd mentality.
So I mean, I have certain things. I'm going to go back and forth, like talking and also saying some things about your charts because I find them.
Please. And I'm sorry to pull you off track.
No, it's okay. And I don't know if I answered the whole thing about, because I think it's a very good idea about the time and space, because maybe I'm going to say something. So space is where we vibrate. Vibration is this energy that is magnetic, and it's pulsating. That's why it has a wavelength. It's pulsating. Sometimes here, sometimes it's there. Time is beyond space. There's no time, but time is what gives us the ratio of things and says, oh, so you're vibrating here and here, like you see in the chart. Right. So Bitcoin, just like right now, is trying to touch, a certain point. So we're doing the support or we're doing the resistance, and we're just saying like, oh, it's going to stay in this thing. So this is where Bitcoin is vibrating right now in this thing. So the space there it is, it's related to the time and the frequency. So it's like the distance between this point and this point, that's time. Yeah. But it is perceived depending on, so I don't know if you look at charts, but if you like open Trade and View and you want to see the chart of whatever, like let's say Bitcoin, you see, I'm going to choose daily, or I'm going to choose weekly, or monthly. So that's the ratio of the vibration, and it changes what you see.
The frequency, basically.
Yeah. So when you see yourself in time, what are you looking at? Are you looking in relationship to yesterday, to tomorrow, to your upbringing, to past lives?
Right.
How is that relating? So we carry that. We carry a lot of these things, and this is very Uranian energy. And Uranos in Greek means sky. Uranos is like a big god. And he married, there's a couple of stories, but he married Gaia, and they created a lot of humans. And so Uranus also is going back to the stars. It really means like everything that is included in the stars. It's all the particles of the sky. It's called Uranos. And I really love that word, because it's like when I look up, it's like, hello, daddy, and then the mother is like, hi, mom, because it's this protection. And the Chinese say that heaven is the father and the earth is the mother. And we are the sandwich in the middle.
The children, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're here.
And literally, back to the astrophysical interpretation, that's true, because the stars manufacture the heavy elements that then seed the universe with the materials necessary for Earth to grow us in its womb. So it's like Father Sky, Mother Earth sort of thing. Forget multivitamins and other supplements. Animal organs are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. You can get 100 times more nutrients from organs than you can from muscle meats. But the problem with eating organs is that they are difficult to find in stores, they are difficult to prepare, and even when they are prepared well, they often don't taste great. Thankfully, Heart and Soil Supplements has made consuming organ meats so much easier by providing powderized organs in capsule form. Organ meats include everything your body needs to thrive: vitamins, minerals, peptides, proteins, and growth factors. This is why organ meats were the most prized foods for our ancestors. Fortunately for us, Heart and Soil makes these treasured foods easily accessible. So go to heartandsoil.co today and use discount code BREEDLOVE to get started on your journey to optimal health and vitality. Again, that's heartandsoil.co, discount code BREEDLOVE. Have you ever wanted to start a business in the Bitcoin space? If so, then the Wolf Startup Accelerator could be for you. Wolf is the first startup accelerator dedicated exclusively to businesses developing in the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times each year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. Go to wolfnyc.com to learn more or apply today. Again, that's Wolf, WOLFNYC.com. When you said, that's so interesting, you said, we always have to think in comparison to what, right? And that, again, you're getting back to this rational structure of reality, that intelligibility itself requires a point of comparison.
Yeah.
It's like that's why things are rational. That's why metaphor is so important, because metaphor is a ratio, basically, right? It's a a target domain in terms of a source domain. So everything, like, I don't think there's anything to describe that's not ratio-like
Everything.
in its structure.
Everything that is energy.
Yes.
Everything. And everything
anything that you want to bring into the domain of intelligibility to where we can talk about it and think about it, there has to be a point of comparison.
Yes.
Because again, as you call it the blob, right? This continuous monster of energy. It's like, well, we have to decide how to dissect it, slice it and dice it, and then we compare those different aspects to make it intelligible.
Yeah. And the collective is very much, I'm not saying the collection, the collective has a consciousness. That's why we say sometimes a collective consciousness. But the problem is like, and this is the problem we're seeing right now, is that many people inside of that collective, they don't even know, and they become tribal. So they start like associated with ideas or perceptions or things they sense, and they were shaped by how they were. And if they have not asked questions that are deep, they don't even know that they're programmed. So they're just really going like that. But then comes the individual, and this is where Prometheus comes in. The myth is very beautiful. He's a Titan, and he is naughty. He decides to give fire to the humans because he's half human as well.
He stole it from the gods, right?
Yeah, I stole it from the gods. And that's a big no-no because the gods are the gods and the humans are the humans, but the humans live in darkness. And Prometheus goes like, what the hell? Like, I can do this. So he goes and he dares and he gives the fire, and the fire is the first spark, and it means creativity. It means I am solar. I have that spark in me.
Techne too, right?
Yes.
Ancient Greek.
It gives the potential for the human to understand the potential of getting out of a trauma or getting out of the blob or getting like becoming authentic, becoming your own creative self, becoming like a child, like the inner child. Like you become this person who goes like, I don't want to say joy because these days that word is like equivalent, but yeah, you have a joy of being alive. So the interesting with Prometheus is like he comes and he steals the fire. He's like punished, and then they say to him, I'm gonna butcher the story, but he's tied to a tree, and then there's this bird that comes every morning and eats half of his liver, and liver is an organ that is able to regenerate, but nevertheless he's still a Titan, so therefore he's immortal, therefore the pain is forever. So this is like, okay, but then comes another very important, and we're going to talk about it in your chart. Chiron is a son of Saturn. Chiron in Greek means like hands, it's like it's a healer that's is able to heal that wound we all have. So we all have a Chiron in our chart. And Chiron was also, birthed as a half human and half god. He was, a centaur. And he was injured from the very beginning because his mother, when he was born, the mother was like, oh, I don't like half a horse and half a, oops. So she just rejects him. So he already has that rejection. So there's a part of ourselves that we feel rejected since we were little. And that rejection that is not, you're making it up. It is there. It's like a wound that we're bringing, right? And so when you're in school and somebody makes fun of you, or you have your first girlfriend or boyfriend, and then they just see that spot, and then you become completely traumatized by it. And maybe you're going to act a lot of your life because of that thing. So Chiron takes 50 years to come back. And when it comes at the age of 50, if you have done the work, it's amazing because you actually become the hero of your story. And you can actually liberate yourself from that vulnerability, because it's a vulnerability. It's actually not true. It's something that you feel. And then what Chiron did is like in his story, he feels vulnerable because he's, not loved. But then Apollo gave him like the tools, like archery, like, we can do this and that. And one day they're playing, and he gets wounded in his leg with the arrow that is poisoned. So his pain is eternal. And he's trying to help people, but he can't. So one day he passes by and he sees Prometheus there. Hey, how are you doing? Not that good. He goes to Zeus and he goes, I have an idea. Why don't I give him my immortality? And I just don't want to live. So actually they agree. And he doesn't sacrifice, he offers his pain so Prometheus can actually go and live. And he becomes part of a constellation to look for us. So we all have a Chiron that is actually helping us with our wound. That is, our wound in our chart is Aquarius. You have a lot of stuff in Aquarius. And
I am an Aquarius.
Yeah, you're an Aquarius. You have Jupiter in Aquarius. You have Venus in Aquarius. You have Vesta in Aquarius. You have Mercury in Aquarius.
So could you, So I don't know if now's a good time or not, but a question I have is like, could you walk through what some of that means? What
Yes,
does it
that's
mean?
what we're going to do.
Okay. What does it mean to have these different planets in these different astrology classifications? Like, how does that influence the reading of who one is?
So the sky, you look up and like your range of vision is like a circle around. I mean, the part you cannot see it, but you know that the sky is kind of circular. So you divide the circle in 12 pieces. That's for the pizza is just 12 pieces.
Right.
And each part of that pizza refers to a part of yourself. So the first part that is on the ascendant, it refers to that part of yourself, and the archetype will be Aries, Mars, the warrior, or the individual.
Okay.
So this archetype is like, doesn't know anything else because it's just me. Nobody else is here. And I want to fight. And so the good archetype of Aries is that they have courage, but they don't see anybody else. Aries wants to do whatever. It's the fire energy that wants to move. Okay, so when I read these things, I'm going to read the archetypes of where they fall, and then I'm going to have harmonics help me to understand the relationship between them. So that's when you have like 90 degrees, 120 degrees. So you use geometry and you use harmonics to understand if you're in dissonance or you're in resonance. Gotcha. And that's when you start bringing the myth and telling the story, because I'm not making it up. I just see it there. I ask you questions and I go, oh, well, it's all there, which is kind of magical in a way. So the second archetype is the archetype of, so I'm alive, right? And then I go the end of the day, and then I'm hungry, and then I need a place to sleep. So second house is about my needs, essential needs, food and shelter. So that's why that house is so much associated, Taurus, with like the essential things that we need, and also money. But money is a value. You see, for me, your question that you always ask, I say money for me represents like the support that I need in order to be free. Because for me, the most important thing in life is freedom, not money, freedom. But if I know that I need to be free, I'm going to make everything to understand what money is.
It's paradoxical in a way, the support that you need. So like the interdependence necessary to be independent.
Yeah. And in my chart, it's like obvious. Because I was always kind of like being together in relationships and kind of like falling into that. But then when my divorce happened, I just realized I had no self-value. And I didn't know how I arrived there, since I learned how to work since I was little. And then I realized, and so this has been my journey, that is all in the book. It's like how I got the realization that through the opposite archetype, I can actually understand where I'm at. So the third archetype, and that's where you have your Pluto and you have a bunch of stuff there. Okay, so you have your moon in Virgo in the first house. Okay. And you have it at 29 degrees, which means, it means that you're very critical. But you have the power of discernment. And you identify with that. It's your self-image. And this is like many lifetimes you've been a critical person. And critical is not bad. It means that you actually can put things together and edit them out, or put them together and say, well, this works and this doesn't work. So you have this capacity to discern. Now, moon is also mother, or the image of nurturing. But I have to look in your chart a couple of things about to see how was it when you came in this life. And what I see, and these are very personal questions, but let's see if you can say yes, no, whatever, or elaborate. It's like what I see, that there was like a space that lacked a lot of emotional like capacity to give you what you needed. There was probably a lot of criticism, or things not working, or maybe not a very good decision making by the person who was taking care of you. So you grew up very confused by it. Very confused because your sense of security, emotional security, was not there for you. So it made you very resilient. And probably that has brought you here.
Yeah.
That lack of security, and when you're a child, you're like, what the hell? And then with the kind of mind that you have, that you're trying to, you're like a little computer. So you're trying to validate this thing and then go, no. So then a lot of the choices you made are because of that lack. So we can say, oh, I hate my mom or my grandmother, whoever, or I go like, oops, that was hard, but I'm going to embrace it. And then with the beautiful thing with astrology is like, then you choose something that is going to provide what you were missing there, because you realize that if you didn't have it, it means that you need to provide it yourself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's incredible how accurate that is, actually. So my mom had me when she was young. She was 21.
Okay.
She had a pretty rough childhood, and then her and my father split when I was about 5 years old. So I think after that, it was a little bit tumultuous prior to the split, and then after the split, there was just a lack of stability for a child, basically. And so there's that, and later in life, she would struggle with addiction and things. So by long story short, like around the age of 8, I pretty much had to grow up. Like I needed to make sure that I was getting myself and my brother to school and all these.
Wow.
So like it was growing up fast, to say the least. And when I was young, I really longed to have a normal family because I saw all my friends around me had normal parents, were just normal, right? It's like good, or what I perceive to be normal. What does normal even mean? Just normal, loving families that aren't dealing with addiction and
support.
all these.
You needed
exactly.
support.
Yeah, so I guess emotional support would be what was lacking. And so I sort of resented, I just felt unlucky in a way, but I definitely but my mom was also an amazing woman. Like early on in life, she taught me, like, you got to read. If you want to solve problems, you need to teach yourself. And she was amazing. She was a very nurturing.
Is she still alive?
She just passed away this year, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And
were you able to?
Yeah, we were fully, like, by the time she passed away, like we've been fully reconciled and everything's great. But it was difficult growing up. Like I was very ready to leave. My aim was to leave home at 18 and go to college, and basically that's what I did. I never turned back. And so it definitely did set me on that path, but it left emotional scarring as well, which showed up in a lot of my early romantic relationships. Just like I dated a girl for 7.5 years, and she was like, it's like dating ice. Like you're just not there. You're not emotionally available. You're not. And so
you were choosing this is interesting. I don't know if you know the work of Gabor Mate.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so I work with him, and I did a lot of workshops and stuff. And he basically, his approach is quite amazing. It's like you come to terms with something that is missing inside of you, and you reconnect. It's like a USB cord. Like you grew up, and that cord was like there because you couldn't plug to your mom, because she couldn't plug it to you because she didn't have something. I mean, you have to go back to her story and the story of your grandmother and everything like that. So when you realize that there's this lack and this place that is nothing growing, and you're basically there, you have Saturn and you have Uranus, so you have a trauma there. But I'm going to tell you something, that trauma is from past lives as well. Yeah. So you chose to be like, before you landed here, you go like, all right, I'll do it. Okay, so what is it that I have to remember? Yeah, okay, I'll remember, because that's going to be rough at the beginning. And you go, I can do it. Yeah. So you come over here, you deal with it, and then you, sorry to be like, but it was
it was rough in the beginning.
And then you kind of like take those emotions that are so hard and you harden them up. Because Saturn is there, and Saturn is the planet that actually represents reality. And it represented reality until 1784 when Uranus was discovered, and because it was the largest planet that we could see with our naked eye. So until then, all mythologies and everything always spoke about Saturn being that like edge of reality, defines structures, defines father figure, defines. So in a way, it defines authority. Okay. And authority in Greek is from the word αυτό. So it defines myself.
Like authoring.
Yeah, you're author, you're authentic.
Yes.
You have authority, so you're good at what you do and something like that. So part of your path, for your path in this life is actually to reconcile with that idea of not having. And instead of like being upset about it, I mean, you could have been upset, and it's okay to be upset about it, but instead of staying there, you actually move, and that's the Uranian energy that you have, Aquarius. You actually move beyond that time, and you create your own channel of how to get what you need step by step. So the first thing that you probably do is like you go with the most familiar. So you choose partners or situations or things where they're familiar for you. That doesn't mean they're good, but they're familiar because you don't know better. You don't know, you don't have the tools because you didn't grow up with them. You see them in your friends, but you still don't know what it is a day to day. So we attract, remember what I said before, we attract that exactly that we need, that we don't have. We also attract that thing that we are, but we need to change. So that's resonance or dissonance. So you attract, and then you go like, oh my God, I'm in hell, which happened to me as well. Like all my exes, I've been married twice. It was always about that thing that it was missing until I said, no, I don't need to be there. Because I had a happy childhood, the whole thing, but still you have these things that are not there.
Sure.
So yeah, but one of the things that fascinates me in your chart is like Pluto is that planet that is far away, and it's all about transformation. Maybe you heard these days that Pluto's in Aquarius and we're going to go into a different thing, AI, and everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, I heard we're going into we went into the age of Aquarius starting in 2012. Is that right?
Yeah, we're kind of like, it's not like a date, but we're moving into another paradigm, that's for sure. And I'm going to tell you something about the cycles. I don't want to scare anybody, but okay. So this cycle is ended already. Only that we're living, like some people have already 1 or 2 feet in the next one. Mm-hmm. You have a couple of toes there already. I do too. Thank God. It's not going to be easy, but we're already in the threshold of a new era. Mm-hmm. But nothing ends and finishes like with a date. It's not like 29th of March and 30. No, it's
There's
just
continuity between the two.
Yeah, and the threshold is like those who have crossed, have dared to cross, can see a little bit. So that's why I see you, for instance, doing different things, like what you're going to do right now with the workshop, the retreats and everything. Yeah. It's something that is pushing you into an unknown arena that you're willing to go and do it. And that requires a lot of courage, my friend. So I'm like,
thank you. Yeah.
It's only for men, but I'm going to disguise myself with a mustache. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm like,
we're starting, it's out of my comfort zone, but we're starting in the more comfortable part out of my comfort zone, which is like men only, because I feel like I have more to share with them. But then we want to expand.
Eventually, and then is embracing the yin side of yourself.
Yes.
The feminine, that is not about like being effeminate. It's about actually understanding that we have that part of ourselves, So you were born with Pluto and the South Node, which means like the line of destiny in the South. They were together. When this happens, it means that your soul has such a memory of past lives where you were disempowered. Because we all were disempowered at one point, and we kind of, when we were powerful, we misused that power. That's okay. And that's why we're coming and learning. And that's why I feel that Bitcoin is such a good way to work on that idea what power is. Because for me, Bitcoin is basically a state of consciousness or a state of mind that is going to meet us where we're at. So if you want to use Bitcoin just to, stack sats, go, my friend. But if you want to use it beyond that, because you want a better civilization with everything that it takes, with all the human action, with all the awareness that you can bring in your also like traumatic body, your spiritual body, like all the bodies that we cannot like feel and touch. Yeah. So what happens is like you came from a time where a lot of the information that you are addicted to comes in books.
Yeah.
You're like totally like the Tower of Babel, like, I don't know, like all those like ideal place like a library. Like,
yeah, that's the library right over there. Actually, I don't know if I showed it to you, but yeah, I try to read a book a week, and I don't know that maybe it's related to that sort of emotional wound because it's also something Mom taught me. I was like, well, if you want to solve problems, you need to read. And so maybe,
but that's beautiful. That's
maybe
beautiful.
I really leaned into that a lot.
But that's beautiful that she gave you that. You see, like despite her lack of being able to give you some stuff, because maybe she was lacking that. God only knows what she went through when she was young. And you pick up what it was important in that sense, right?
Yeah. And maybe it's useful here too, just to mention a little bit of her back. So her father was in the Korean War.
Oh God.
And then he also was in special forces in Cuba, actually, during like the
Cuban crisis?
Missile Crisis and all that. And so he came back with a lot of trauma, obviously. Was on search and destroy missions and all of these things. And like, there's just a lot of darkness there. And then so when he came back, he's having flashbacks and all kinds of issues.
PTSD.
Yeah. And so that just affected her a lot.
Absolutely.
And so, she ends up leaving home at a young age, and she had a very traumatic childhood. So that was like, and I didn't know that, like, I learned this over time, obviously, but there's a lot to be said that it's like an intergenerational echo of warfare in a way.
Yeah.
Still two generations later.
Yeah. Your trauma is like ancestral because Uranus is in your 4th house and it's the house of the mother. So the interesting thing is this, is like we can always overcome things when we are aware of them. You put light to something and there's no more darkness, period. All you have to do is confront it. Oh, big deal. Well, you got to confront the fear. And that's what it is. So having Pluto there with the books and I could say, for instance, that maybe in many lifetimes the person had like the keys to the big library and you were the scholar also scribing and you were telling stories. And that's why, you're almost like a storyteller and so you are like, for you, the familiarity is that you feel familiar. But there's something that is inviting you once you go through a little bit of what you have to go through, meaning like addressing certain darkness that you have, like I have, everybody. What it's pointing is that you're going to be free from like the idea of having to like consume the information, and then you become the old wise man that you don't need a book. You can just like that because you have that in you, and you're a seeker. You're the seeker of truth, and you're the seeker of like, let's go over there, let's go. So you have that courage. I see you like a trailblazer, like on a horse going like, I'm going to go to this thing. And the way that you do it is very beautiful because you were like interested in Bitcoin, and then you did one thing that is actually amazing. You went and you started studying and asking questions. And that's how you get your knowledge. And that's how you also expand the knowledge to other people. So your search became something that it was good for the tribe. Let's say let's think more about the tribe and not the collective yet. There is going to be at one point people like understand, because right now we're at that place where Bitcoin kind of like people go, huh? So you are like opening up a space for people who are inquiring about another solution, another technology, another way of life, getting away from trauma in many different ways. So you serve as that. And when I see your chart with the Bitcoin, it's like, it's obvious. Because Bitcoin was, like the chart that I use is the 3rd of January, 2009. The Genesis chart. And so it was in Capricorn, the sun and Pluto was in Capricorn, but everything else is in Aquarius. Every other planet is there and it's on top of your planet. So in a way, also the direction of destiny is like Bitcoin is leading us to deal with our trauma, so then it can take us somewhere else. And this is very important because it's very important that to understand, and I'm a little bit against this thing that Bitcoin fixes everything, because Bitcoin is not something outside.
Right.
Bitcoin's not going to come right now and pick me up.
Right. It's part
or
of
give me,
who we are.
No, it's like the stars. It's like we're part of it.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin is going to become better or worse depending on our actions.
Yes.
So Bitcoin is a process that we can use in order to individuate or liberate ourselves.
Yeah.
Individuation is the path that every soul has voluntarily to evolve. Yeah. You can choose not to evolve, and that's fine. Go to the DNC this week. You know,
de-evolution occurring there for sure.
Evolution, totally.
Yeah.
And that's a choice. So your choice was like you put yourself like a mark that, okay, I'm going to remember what I came here. There is a lot of liberation from trauma, generational trauma, but trauma also misusing power. What is power actually? Power is something that we think, oh, we're going to have money, we're going to have status. That's different. You can have money, value, you value things. Status is something else. But power, actually, if you really see the most powerful people in the world, they say nothing, they do nothing. You don't even know them. They don't have to say nothing. They're, old ladies, somebody, you meet them from time to time, you go like, that person is really got it. So you go to the polarity. Your Pluto and your South Node are in Scorpio. You're part of the millennials. And I love the millennials because I'm a little bit older. So I was waiting for you guys to kind of wake up because I was bored to hell with my generation. So as soon as you guys started waking up like 10 years ago around Bitcoin time, I was like, yo, let's talk, because part of your generation, the millennials, are here to confront everything that is wrong with society, to actually dissolve it. That means forgive. Because you can attack it, you can liberate it, but you also have to come to terms. And that forgiveness is very important because you can actually liberate and keep and do more harm, killing, saying bad things. It's like choose love. It's more difficult to be good than bad.
Yes.
It's really way more difficult. So you're part of that generation that is really coming here to show another way. Now, some people have more of that. Like in your chart, you have that, but that comes with a price or with an offering, let's say. And the price is this, in a way, is like you are here to actually help. You're here to serve humanity. You're serving. And I like the word service, not the way we have it in South America. There's being like servile, which is like slave.
Yeah.
No.
Serve. Yeah.
Being of service is like
there's no negative connotation here.
No.
Yeah.
But I have to sometimes because in South America it's like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to be a servant.
No. It's like the servant king that is the archetype of Christ in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's like kings are here to serve their people.
Yes.
I mean, public servants too, only that they don't know. You're here to serve.
If only they did.
They didn't get the memo. And so, because they're here for the fake power. They're not powerful.
Yeah.
They're actually, if they were, they will be doing things silently,
Yeah.
So your soul is here to be very like observant about what is not working. So you're just going to map. That's why I think you have a thing called Maps of Meaning with Luke, I think. Like you have
that's a book by Jordan Peterson. We did a whole series on.
Yes, Maps of Meaning.
But maps in general, like one of the most profound quotes I've ever heard is the map is not the territory.
Yeah.
Which gets back to this whole domain of, rationality and representation, or like even words or maps, right? These are maps to concepts. Concepts are maps to percepts. And we're always mapping these different spaces as the rational animal. And
but for you, it's important because your mind, that is brilliant, by the way, it's very brilliant. It needs to be kind of defined in a logical way, but you also have another mind that is very abstract. And that's the one you leave open. And that's the one you say, all right, Monika, astrology, okay, let's do that. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're not like saying, oh God, like, what is she going to talk about or something like that. And so it's interesting because that's not very common.
Yeah, well, that again, I would credit to the Lindy effect in a way. It's like, it's humility. Like, and this is from Bitcoin, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I learned about the Lindy effect through Taleb, and which was Bitcoin, basically. But, something that's so much bigger than you and has been around so much longer than you, that you just have to, the base assumption has to be there's something there. It's like, even if you don't understand it or you reject it, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I think this thing is total bullshit. It's like, it's still huge and been around for a long time, which even I have to call myself into question when I'm critical of the central bank, because I'm like, well, the central bank has been around for a while. But then when you actually study the history of it, it's like, well, it hasn't been around that long. There's actually a much longer history that was non-centrally banked. So, but it's like this constant cycle of calling your own, again, presuppositions or stories into question. But, because you, as we said earlier, you are a slave to those stories. But the interesting thing
that you have is like Aquarius is also detached. Because it's beyond Saturn. So Saturn is the last part of the reality that crystallizes those emotions that, you don't want to feel them. So you just keep them somewhere. Sometimes, unfortunately, with time, those emotions become cancer, or they become strokes, or because they're so like really, they materialize in the body. So doing trauma work is super important. I've done a lot of trauma work, again, with Gabor, but I do something called somatic practice, where when I talk to my practitioner, I basically come with a lot of observation. I'm very curious. So I said, hey, I noticed this. I was the other day at Robert and I spoke at it, and then this thing came up, and he goes, where are you feeling? I'm like, here. And I start working on the thing, and then it releases. So I'm actually all the time releasing the pain or the preconception of something.
Interesting.
So for instance, I'm going to be very frank here. So I observe people. When I want to get a connection, I became a hermit. Like really, I'm very meticulous about who I speak to and everything. So I met you at the Miami, and I sense your energy, and I said, okay, whatever. But I'm not going to call you the next day, because I'm not like that. I mean, if you're introvert, I'm a hermit. Like it doesn't. But then there's a moment that I had this thing. It's like, and I'm shy the first time, not now, but I'm shy, and so I wanted to talk to you. But I just didn't know if I had it to make the first step. And so I just put it out there. I'm like, why are you feeling like that? Are you feeling like, I don't know, like, what is it that you're feeling? And I was like, I don't know, because what I don't want to do is like ask a favor, like, because I'm very self-sufficient. But then I thought, no, this is not about self-sufficiency. This is about I dare you to go beyond the place where you feel comfortable. So it was like an exercise. And I've been doing that also with the book. Like, I dare you to write a book and publish it. I dare, because I want to get out of my comfort zone. Because there's certain things that I do already, like with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
So I texted you, I don't remember, one of the social media, and I just like, oh, and I, threw it. And I was like, oh, the worst thing you can say is like, oh. But you were very inviting. And I was like, okay. And then I thought, okay, so this is working. That this year, for instance, I made a plan of all the things that really try things that are making me go out of my comfort zone, like all the way. And trust, and this goes back to intuition. So intuition is when you trust your heart.
Yes.
When you don't have to recite a quote. I love quotes. I mean, my book has a lot of quotes, and I love to read the old guys and women, fewer, but it doesn't matter. I'm not that feminist at all. I'm just like, it's okay. That's the way it is, history. And but I also want to be able to be my own person, because that's the only way I'm going to liberate myself from whatever trauma I'm carrying, because we all carry that. So this lifetime, you also have, like, you initiate a lot with you're like very focused, and you go deep. You're like the person that goes down to the sea, and until you don't get the pearl, you don't go up.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like an intense curiosity.
Yes.
And I think that was just inborn in a
Yes,
way.
totally.
Because that's why my mom pushed me to read.
No, it's
she
like
was like,
you probably
tired of me asking so many questions. She's like, you have to go read
like,
now.
Kiddo, like, learn to read and
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. So you figured out for yourself.
Yeah. But it's beautiful, because that's leading you where you are right now. And that's going to support you on your way of liberating all the things that you felt that they were not okay in your family. You felt weird, you didn't have a normal family. Not because they were weird, it was what it was.
Yeah.
And then, for instance, like, eventually tapping into the idea of what it is to be like traumatized by PSDT, living with a parent like that. It could be horrendous for your mom. Like, and sometimes when we put ourselves in those situations, even just in prayer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about epigenetics.
Yes, of course. Yeah. That your environment can actually influence how your genetics manifest, right?
But you can actually heal your family backwards.
Well, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's amazing, because you actually, there's no time, there's no space really. So you actually enter in this other realm of no time. And then you are there with, things that you cannot touch here, but that exist. They exist. Love is not touchable. I mean, you can give a present, but it's like something that you feel faith.
It transcends time and space.
Yeah. So you do a lot of healing when you accept where you're coming from, and you try to understand what was happening with no judgment, but just like really surrendering your heart and being compassionate about it. Says, Mom, that must have been very hard for you.
Yeah. After becoming a father, I became so much more accepting of my mother's plight, because I became a father in my early 30s, and it was difficult.
Yeah.
She became a mother in her early 20s.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I started to put myself in her shoes. Like, had I become a father at the age of 21, like, oh my gosh, it would have been incredibly difficult. And she did it. She, got us.
And I'm happy that you were, because, I mean, you can still do it beyond, because that connection never ends. I speak to my mom every day. She's a very funny woman, but she's really whispering all the time. She's like, oh, Robert, like, she's the one who's like, you can do this. And I'm like, okay. And then I send the message, like, I send or whatever. I'm doing a lot of risky stuff for me right now. Yeah. I mean, you're one of, like, I boom, boom, boom. And then I go like, and then it's like, oh, okay, good. Because I want to get out of the comfort zone now after 4 years of moving here.
Yeah.
4 years were for me important to decondition my brain from New York. That was huge programming.
Yeah.
It was huge. Political correctness. I mean, I was there. I never really believed the whole woke thing, but I was surrounded. All my friends are extremely woke. I don't speak to any of them. So it's like, and then learning about John Dewey and I'm like, dude, you are extremely, like, I was touching those waters, and it's not that they're bad or not, but I just want to see where I'm going.
Yeah.
And what is good for me.
Yeah.
Like, I have to try that. So, but I have to risk it. I have to.
Yeah. It's the only way again, growth is a traumatic experience, and it requires these episodes of trial and error. So I'm really glad you reached out, though, because for me, it was serendipitous, because actually I had been thinking more about astrology and these, like I have certain friends that are really into it, and like I had certain conversations around that time that were just making me think more about it. And so then when you reached out,
Perfect.
I didn't even know you were into astrology at the time. I just knew you were into Bitcoin, basically. But it's
no, it was amazing. And right now, like in your progress chart, so that's it. You're born at a certain time, and the sky is there, and it's showing you like different configurations. So you have 3 planets on the top. That means that's career. That's how people see you. That's how you project your persona. That's not you. You have a persona. We all have a persona. We have to behave a certain way. You cannot go, you go to a club and certain times you needed to wear a tie. That's your persona. They won't let you in. You can fight, but they won't let you in. And this is the way it goes. Society has certain rules, and it's up to you whether you want to abide by them or you want to change them. So if you don't want to do that, then you open another club. End of the story. This is the story of humanity. Like, if I'm going to rebel. So up there you have 3 kind of like situations. They're asteroids. So they're not like that big, but they are important. So you have precisely on your, like on top when you were born, you have something called the Black Moon Lilith. That is not actually a planet, but it's a position of the dark side of the moon. There's all the shadows. So this is interesting. When I saw that, I was like, oh God, you get a lot of projection from people. Big time.
Oh yeah.
Like big time. So they're projecting their own like shadow. Like they see you and they're just vomiting their shadows. Everything.
That has been a thing my whole life too, actually.
Really?
I told you the booty love thing because made fun of me when I was young. Also in college, I used to have people that I called them long distance haters. I would, start dating a girl and she'd be like, oh yeah, this group of guys that I know, they all hate your guts. I went to a college of like 30,000 people, so it's a pretty large school.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I'd never met any one of these individuals. I'd never met one. I'd never been in the same room
with them. But I'm a
nice
guy.
I've never been in the same room as them. So I'm like, how do they hate me? Like they've never even set foot in the same room as me. She's like, no, they passionately, totally, utterly like talk. They talk. And I was like, wow, how do I cultivate that? And then I've had other people tell me, it's like, well, when you carry yourself a certain way which is funny because like, apparently I appear confident, but I'm actually like, I'm an introvert. I'm not actually super confident. I mean, maybe I've put on this persona, as you said.
No, but your persona because this is what I got from you. Like I got that you through the podcast basically. And when you ask questions, because I seen you ask questions, but I also seen you answering questions, which is very humbling that you put yourself also out there. Not a lot of people do that. So, and you are very open about saying, I don't know about this, I want to know, which is like even more. So that shows a lot of like willingness to go beyond what is known and be a trailblazer, right? So a lot of people hate the persons in the front because like maybe they don't know their courage. They don't want to do it, or it's easier because I don't have a life. So it's easier to do that. So you have also like you're here to decode a lot of stuff. Like you're decoding. You're very curious about it. So when you come and you give your podcast, or if you write books or whatever you do, you're here to helping decode certain reality that is how you see it. But other people can assign to that or abide by that and resonate, go like, oh yeah, he's saying this thing, or I want to like, like when I go to your channel, there's certain things that I'm more attracted, and I go, I'm going to listen to this and not this. I mean, I wish I had 100 hours a day, but now I don't. So I'm very picky about what I listen to. And you have also Chiron there. And Chiron, I was talking about the wounded healer.
Yeah.
And Chiron there, it makes you feel a little bit like the oddball out there. Like you're there, putting yourself in the collective, putting yourself out there in a position of a podium, because the 10th house is the podium. You're actually, here. And they throw you tomatoes, they throw you things, they just go like that. And you're still there going like, well, you know that this is the way for you to heal your vulnerabilities.
Interesting.
And so, but sometimes you self-doubt, or probably you have been in position, especially younger, that you didn't know how to work with this, where you didn't want to be put out there, like as you say.
I'm shy, actually. Yeah, I never wanted to be
attention
on camera. Like none of this all happened organically. Yeah.
I love it.
Literally discovering Bitcoin, tweeting about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Twitter following grows, writing about Bitcoin. You get invited on podcasts to talk about what you wrote about. The podcast perform well. People say, we want to see more of you. And it's like, all the while, I'm an introvert. Like, I never wanted to do any of this. But
which
it's
is
like
beautiful.
People keep saying more, more, more. I'm like, all right, I just lean into it. And before you know it, now it's like I do this like I do something that an extrovert would typically do, although I am introverted. And then there's all the social media controversy that I've been through multiple times now. And it's like that, it just keeps, there's something, I don't believe in coincidence, right? That these things keep happening, and I'm learning more and more about how humans actually operate.
Yes.
But this sounds like it's a whole nother thing that, the fact that you said people are always throwing shade at me.
Because the persona, it's what is out there. So you see the Greeks, when they created theater, they had these characters, that's where the word comes from, and they were playing a persona, that's a Latin word. So they were playing a character that it was not you. They're playing this or that. Yeah. And so when people see you on stage, they see the character, they don't see you. Right. And that's what we do sometimes, like with our careers, we're playing a role. Yeah. And this is interesting because back in the day, the roles were different. There were the roles like more related to the tribe. So you had the king, you had the queen, you have the treasurer, you have, I don't know, the in the kitchen, there's somebody cooking. You have the ones that are nurturing the children, whatever, one that is going and killing the cow, whatever. You have like a hierarchy of
division of labor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you have this and it's like, what are you going to study? Like, and in the year 1000, what are you going to study? Well, I want to be an engineer. It's like, I'm going to build my house, And then you figure it out. And so it's a different kind of times that we live in because we have detached ourselves so much from who we really are, our authentic self. And that's in Leo, that's like our creativity. Yeah. And we're thinking so much about how we're going to be responded to and we're going to be received. So that's why I said to you at one point, there's a difference between being influential and being inspirational. Yes. Because when you're out there in a career and you like have to work on your LinkedIn or whatever you call that place, and then so you're not supposed to say this. I mean, what about if I say astrology? Oh, they're not going to call me. So people are not really being themselves. Yeah. People are like striving so much to fake it. Yeah. And then what they do is like in social media, it's like that. And now, for instance,
holy shit.
I love your new feed in Instagram. It's like, let's do it. I just love it. It's like, like that. I used to be a little bit more like that before, but I think I annoyed a lot of people because I was just like being too much. And all my friends in New York were like, Monika, you're over posting. I was like, what does that even mean?
You're touching on something now that really lands with me because there is this, maybe this is the critical guy again coming out, but when I see people, especially on media presentations, and they're putting, like I've met this guy in person and we've interacted, and then you see him on camera and his voice is different, his mannerisms are different. His just like, he goes from like, hey, I talk to you like this, and when he's on camera, he's talking like this. I'm just like, that is the most annoying shit. I just don't want anything to do with that.
Unauthentic.
So I hope that like I didn't want to be on camera, but if I'm going to be on camera, I hope I'm being myself as much as possible. Like that's what I want to do. But it's very difficult, right? Because as you said, we do have that persona dimension, right? Like when the camera's on, no matter who you are, I mean, maybe if you're a professional actor or something, that there's no difference for you. But for 99.9% of people, there is a feeling of difference.
Yeah, and there's vulnerability. So you have Chiron there, so you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. And then you have the Black Moon Lilith is saying, you know what, people are just going to throw their shadows. So you know what, because that's going to make you strong, actually. It's good.
It does.
And then you have Pallas there going like, anyway, there's a code in being this, so people can take it however they want. Yes. And it's going to be changing because sometimes they see you like a whoa, and sometimes because it's in Gemini, so sometimes they see you like, you know, you have like all these people, woo, and you're like, what is next here? Yeah. And so there's a lot of slavery in that if you don't own it.
Right. If you don't, again, this is back to like owning your purpose and your principle and staying on that no matter what anyone says.
Yeah, that's
right?
difficult.
It's like it's a tricky balance because you want to take in feedback because obviously you want to get better, but you can't attach your worth to that feedback. Yeah. The worth has to be attached to, are you on mission? Yeah. And
one thing, I'm going to say this because this is something that happened. There was a moment that was like a lot of dirt that it was being thrown at you, and you were and that's when I knew that you were very like connected to your heart. You were asking genuinely like, should I talk about this?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like this is amazing. I was like, whoa. And then I think I wrote back to you and I said, keep doing what you're doing, because I felt that the right time was not there. You would have been completely eaten alive.
Yeah.
Like completely. Like they were just going to kill you.
Yeah.
And I said, the energy should be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think I wrote to you and I said, hey, keep going.
Yeah, and that was the feedback. I did it as a poll, and it was roughly like 2/3 of the audience was like, no, you shouldn't talk about your personal stuff publicly. And I acquiesced to that. I'm like, okay, I won't do that.
Yeah.
But there is the motivation, which I think I put in that post, was like, a lot of men have messaged me privately, and they're like, oh, I'm going through some other shit that it's just like that, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it would be helpful to talk about without naming names or what, like,
but not Twitter. You make a book. You make a workshop.
You got to pick a different medium.
You actually make that and make it into something quite amazing.
Yes. Do you want to give your kids a foundation of freedom, an understanding of Bitcoin, and a healthy skepticism of government? Then you should try Tuttle Twins. Tuttle Twins is a cartoon about a grandma with a time-traveling wheelchair who takes her grandkids on hilarious adventures to learn about economics and freedom. Think the Education of Magic School Bus meets the comedy of The Simpsons. With Tuttle Twins, your kids will learn about Bitcoin from Satoshi Nakamoto, civil disobedience from Harriet Tubman, natural rights from John Locke, and how to destroy the economy from Karl Marx. Today, Hollywood greenlights a lot of woke content or mindless garbage. Each episode of Tuttle Twins is parent-funded, parent-vetted, and only released when it is parent-approved. Because Tuttle Twins is fan-funded, it was the world's first kids show to teach about Bitcoin. That episode alone has been seen by over 40 million people and was tweeted by Michael Saylor. You can watch episodes of Tuttle Twins for free right now, and if you like what you see, you can watch dozens of Tuttle Twins episodes when you subscribe to the Angel Studios app. So go to angel.com/breedlove to discover Tuttle Twins today. One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. I want to just read this quote from Robert Pirsig and Leela, which also landed with me a lot going through all this stuff. And I think this is just useful for anyone that's ever in the spotlight for any reason. It's like, really, you might think, fame and fortune is sort of the thing that people typically think they want, right? It's what will make them happy. But it's like, you really need to think about the nature of celebrity. It's not just, you don't just, I feel ridiculous even talking about this. Not like I'm a celebrity, but I have this little micro celebrity in this.
You're
Bitcoin
well known
world.
In your field.
But there's a certain set of experiences that come with it that are not necessarily positive.
Absolutely.
And Pirsig wrote, until you're the celebrity, you don't see how spooky it is. They love you for being what they want to be, but they hate you for being what they're not.
Yes.
There's always this two-faced relationship with celebrity, and you never know which face will appear next. And like, that is the reality. It's not, people don't see you as you are. People see you as they are. Or they're cherry picking.
Absolutely.
You're putting out 1 million different impressions of yourself via social media and whatever else. They're looking at 3 of them or 10 of them or 50 of them. And they're creating an image of you that they have formulated. It's not necessarily
but
who
you're
you
touching
are.
in something super important about shadow work that I said before.
Yeah.
And this is probably the biggest gift after 12 years with the Taoist, was when somebody says something about you, not about you.
Yeah.
It's about how they relate to you.
Exactly.
And so when you differentiate, and I learned that a long time ago because, as an artist, sometimes you get invited to shows, or now that I do public art, I actually have to propose things. They pay me for the proposals, but sometimes they just say, nice work, but we give this $1 million project to somebody else. And then I was crying. I was like, what did I do wrong? And then I said, like, no, they chose somebody that was better. So I learned to deal with that. It's not rejection. It's just not happening. And it made me actually become better at because it was a challenge. But I learned that I shouldn't take things personal like that.
Yes.
Because I'm being there, like the energy that I'm doing is going to represent something that is going to have a meaning, specific in time and place for something. And however people receive that, has nothing to do with me. I already put it there.
Exactly.
And then if you're just bored and you have anything to do and you're scrolling, which is a lot of the people and then I'm going to say something. Some people who listen, I hate opinions.
Yeah.
I think opinions.
They're like assholes. Everyone has them and they all stink.
But this is interesting. Opinions is a very logical stream.
Sure.
So opinions are very useful when you give a solution to it. You say, you know what? Because you also have a very critical eye. And that eye is like you see something not working and then you want to improve it. There's an improver in you all the time. You want to improve yourself. You want to be more authentic. You want to try something new. You're going to go into this line of exercise.
I don't want to pull people down. That seems to be like a thing that I've identified in myself that seems to be different from a lot of people is, and this is the mimetic desire thing, like the Rene Girard mimetic desire rabbit hole is the one I'm in big time now. But there are a lot of people that if they see you above them in whatever, it doesn't even have to actually be above them. If they just perceive you to be in a better position than them, they actually want to pull you back down. It's the whole, if you've got the crabs in a pot boiling and one of them starts to escape, like the other crab will literally pull it back in. It doesn't serve his interest actually to pull you back into the pot. He could have let you escape and it wouldn't have hurt him anymore. But it's the whole misery loves company thing.
But the interesting
I don't feel that actually in my heart. I just don't feel, it's like if I see someone that's succeeding, it can inspire me to want to compete and like maybe get on that level, but I don't want to pull them down. And that doesn't feel right.
No, and you have a lot what it takes in order to, you have a lot of resilience in your chart. So you already have like, you came already pre-programmed with certain things that, like you have all the weapons and all of a sudden you like, and you can start using them right now because you came with that knowledge. You knew, again, it's like you can't believe or not about reincarnation, but there are cycles that repeat themselves and there's some things that are very familiar. And so you chose to be in a situation that is very familiar to you in terms of like knowledge and information. So it was very clear to you very early on that you had to dive deep into understanding the world with books. Now, your path is to actually lead yourself in service. So that means you have to become solar. Like, you're Aquarius. So Aquarius is collective still. And Aquarius, wants to liberate and wants to be the rebel. But the most difficult part of an Aquarian is to actually become its own person. And you don't have to lead the way. The only way that an Aquarian is going to lead his way is when you actually embrace your own solar, like your own light.
Yes.
And you go, I'm going to go this way. And then people go, he left.
Yes.
Boom, 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 and then after a while they go like, oh, he left, that's good. Right. But there is this thing, so you have that and you have it in your chart like it's there.
Well, then the controversy actually helps with that because you go your own way and then people throw the tomatoes at you and you're like, oh, well then I have this, well maybe, I don't know, it's disagreeableness. This seems to be common among Bitcoiners, but like once you tell me, oh, I'm doing something wrong, you're not doing it right, it's like I double, triple, quadruple down. I mean, this sounds silly and probably very vulnerable
it challenges
to reverse psychology.
It challenges.
Yeah, but once I get challenged, or someone tells me it's wrong, if I think it's actually right, I mean, I'll stop and think, are they right? But I'm like, oh, I've decided, no, I'm actually in the right, then I'm going to go 4 times as hard against that.
You listen.
I listen, but I will. You're going to energize me by going against me, basically.
Yeah, it gives
if
you
I
fuel.
think I'm in the right, I will try to evaluate if I'm in the right.
Yeah, because it gives you a sense of like you're not fighting with them, but you're like trying to like it gives you some incentive for you to actually probably see something you didn't know that you could do. Like it's a challenge in a way.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's
good.
It's a pursuit of vindication, I suppose.
So how do you feel in the last few weeks? Because yesterday we had a full moon that it was like, oh my God, and it is really challenging. I know you're about to, and I'm going to do your progress in a little bit. You're going into a new arena right now, completely new that you're willing to explore. And that normally would go like, why am I going to go like that? It's not that you're going to leave behind what you're doing, but you are really, really eager to just, get on the horse and go exploring. Like, let's take the, the light here and just go into darkness and see what happens. And not only that, but also bring some other people. Like, I know you're going to do this retreat, and I just, I wish you all the best, because I think it's very beautiful to be able to be mentoring others. So I'm a mentor with people. That has given me the biggest humility, because it puts me in the level of a human. I don't know it all. Actually, I don't know nothing. And I'm in this beginner's mind all the time. And it is through listening to their stories and their psychology that I actually go like, wow, I hadn't seen this. And so putting yourself there is a very vulnerable place. But at the same time, kudos to you. Like it's really something that I think and this is how I feel about Bitcoin right now. I think that the whole cycle that we're getting in, we're going to see more and more people that actually start implementing and integrating other things that are more important, that are as important as the financial part. And so when you start showing up with, like, right now you have the whole like health part that you want to like look good, feel good. I went through that rabbit hole. I told you before, 20 years ago, fasting like that. I know a lot about nutrition because of that. So I know how to take care of myself. And it was fantastic. It just was like changed my life. Yeah. And it made me feel very empowered in my own, like, okay, I know what I need, my body needs. Yeah. Just in case something horrible happens, I know how to feed myself. I know I'm not reliant on other things. So I see that and I'm like, yes, good job.
Yeah, it's a Bitcoin. I mean, I guess, so you get the Bitcoin philosophy going for a long time and you talk and think a lot about these things, but at some point it boils down to just action, right? What Aristotle said, the purpose of knowledge is not to know but to act, kind of thing, or the purpose of knowledge is not knowledge but action. So what do you do with all this freedom and learning that Bitcoin has given you? At some point, well, you need to do something.
Yeah,
right?
Show me the money.
And so the new thing I'm on with Bitcoin is BTC, be the change.
Oh, nice.
So to actually try and be that the change you wish to see in the world. Yeah. Well, if you want the world to change, then you need to start here, right? Like if you want to fix the world, what does Peterson say? Before you fix the world, clean up your room.
Yeah, something like that.
It's like, actually look at yourself, right? What are you doing day in and day out? What are you bringing to the table? How are you impacting those around you? Again, the mimetic desire thing is like people learn more through imitation, I think, than they do through abstraction or rational discourse. Yeah. Sure, there's a subset of people that really learn through rational discourse. Those are like the philosophers that lead everyone else. But ultimately, it becomes these cultural icons and influencers that motivate people through imitation. Yeah. And so it's like you have to, if you don't embody your philosophy, then it's meaningless, basically.
Absolutely.
Like you can sit here and chat and talk.
You just said the word, embody.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to do. It's like just embody.
The embodiment is something, and that goes back to the verse of John. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. And so that verse is very important because he's talking about the way the Spirit of God gets incarnated. And the word incarnation from Latin means in the flesh. So the only way to really get your inner light is to be here now. Yes. Be in the physical part, enjoying it, being mindful of it, taking care of the earth, like taking care of, like, I love Praxeology because it has really given me, which is very interesting because I never liked logic. I was like, I don't want to be logical.
But it's logic incarnated.
Yes. And it's practical. Yeah. And so it changed me. Like I did the course with Saifuddin and I thought, I'll do it, whatever. Like it's fun. It has changed me so much and everything in perspective right now. And I'm going back and trying to have more logic in my life because I remember having fights with my ex-husband, whatever. He was like, you're so illogical. I was like, I love being illogical because it was this drama that I wanted to put. But now I say, well, there's something very important about logic. when in terms of human action, because it's just very simple.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what are the principles in
Yes.
life. And we all have principles,
Yes.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Some people don't have that much integrity,
Yeah.
which is, I think, I always call it like the base of everything is like that, like time is like that. And then like price is like that. So principles is like time, but then this can go as high as your integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And in your chart, you have a lot of integrity. There's something that really moves you is your own integrity. And that doesn't mean that your integrity is the same as everybody else, because your integrity is based on how you relate to your authentic self. What does it really mean to be authentic? Who is Robert? How is Robert like feeling? Is he actually being in relationship to that? And where are you at in the progress of it? Because you're still in those stages. I know you recently entered into a beautiful relationship like the last year. And in your chart, you're actually giving yourself the opportunity to learn to trust yourself in relationship to another person intimately.
Yeah.
Because as we spoke before, you did not have that at home. So how can you trust the feminine side if that feminine side is a little bit like not steady?
Yes.
So your emotional body doesn't know. So you got shut down. Then you develop the shyness and like that. I believe that you are going to work on your shyness a little bit.
Yeah, it's come a long, long way, obviously now. So you do enough of this stuff and it just goes away eventually. But this particular romantic relationship, I think the most right thing we did was just start on a foundation of radical truth.
Beautiful.
Like we've started from the beginning of just like, it's a whole interesting story, but I used to take this approach to dating where like most people probably do, you're trying to like play up your strengths and play down your weaknesses, right? Emphasize what's good about you, de-emphasize what's not good about you. And I just took the opposite. I was like, no, like here's everything that's wrong. Here's all the things I'm dealing with. Here's, and so set that tone of being very radically truthful with her from the beginning. And it just let us like
beautiful
have a lot of relational integrity, emotional, what would you say, vulnerability, I guess, that we just can fully open up to each other. Yeah. And then we have just taken that very seriously. So we started seeing a relationship therapist way before we had problems, it's like just sort of preemptive.
Yes.
And we've just been very consciously building this,
that's so beautiful,
towards this vision that we share.
I think that's beautiful and that's very commendable. I wish, not in this lifetime, but my marriages failed because I didn't know that could happen.
Yeah.
And then I had to kind of run away from it. And, my path is a different one, but I think that there's no shame about asking for support.
Yeah.
And actually when you preempt, like when you do like alternative medicine, which is what I do, I don't do any pharma or anything. So I take care of myself. That's my preventive. So you already know that if there's something arising, you will have the foundation of how to deal with it in the case it's something like, like the example you gave me, like, she thought about the dishes and then you just had a conversation and you laughed and you go, oh no, oh my God. And like, because you were honest about it.
Yeah, exactly right. We had that foundation. So it's like, she didn't even go down that path. And because of the therapy we've been doing, we both have this sort of meta awareness. It's like, well, when I saw myself starting to think about this, then I was seeing the path I could go down. But then I was like, oh, I'm going to step back and just talk to my partner about it later.
Beautiful.
Versus people that, I don't know, we just don't have, this is a positive side, I think, of internet and social media, that you can find these things now.
Yeah, but you need support.
Yeah, you need support.
Absolutely.
I would just like, I've started to look at psychological therapy, relationship therapy as like going to the gym, right? It's not, you don't go to the gym when you're hurt and sick and out of shape. It's like, obviously still go and that'll probably help, but you should do it way before that happens. So that doesn't happen, right? So like you should start going to therapy in your relationship way before your relationship has accumulated all these injuries.
And what is therapy? This is very interesting conversation because at the very end, we have different ways of connecting to ourselves. Yeah. It's all language at the very end. Astrology is a language. Human design is a language. Mythology is a language.
Yes.
And there are different kinds of psychology. I abide a lot by the Jungian, which I studied. Since I was little, I was very interested in that because I was very interested in the way he came to understanding the universe. He never really practiced it. Actually, he was reading charts. He was very interested in astrology, in the I Ching. there was a part of him that was so curious. And I don't know if you read his books, like his memories and stuff. He is like a storyteller. Like,
you're talking about Jung, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I have several of his books, and I've only read small pieces.
If you read the memories and diaries, whatever, like when he's little and he takes you to his world, you're like, fantasy. So he has this like almost very whimsical way of being, playful, very playful, and willing to make mistakes and willing to go beyond. He's also very Aquarian. So when he writes very eagerly to Freud about astrology, Freud destroyed him.
Yeah.
And that's what he became apart, because I'm curious about this thing. And this thing is actually, I'm doing it with my patients. He would have the chart talk and go, like I'm doing right now, like, oh, that's there. And then you offer, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just probably giving you a confirmation of something. And maybe I'm going to say a couple of things. You go like, and that's really what this is supportive. This is supportive, like a good practitioner can be supportive in a conversation that you have.
Where would you recommend starting for if you were interested in Carl Jung and his relationship to astrology? Are there certain books you'd recommend to jump into?
There he goes. Give me the name of the books.
There it is.
Yeah, I will give you So I will start like reading his memories, diaries. He doesn't talk about it until the end, but then there's this wonderful astrology. You will like it. And I'm going to send you the name of that book because it has a lot to do with Aquarian and Uranus energy and myth. And her name is Liz Green. She's probably the most important like psychoanalysis, like she's an astrologer. She's in her 70s, 80s. She's in Switzerland. And she's the most important like Jungian astrologer. And she has written many books about everything. And I entered astrology very early on with her. And then I did study with something's called evolutionary astrology, because I'm really interested in that. So Jung, I would read like his book. Then when you master a little bit what he's doing, I also got into him because of synchronicity.
That's the book I have on my coffee table. It's his book, Synchronicity.
Yeah, it was like, that was the song by the Police. So I was like, synchronicity. But then if you understand the word in Greek, it means being together with time. But what is time if not something that is beyond space?
Yeah,
it's not here, as you say. It's not here.
It's
somewhere else. So it is an idea, but it actually it exists, like some people will say, in the fourth dimension. Like in the third dimension, there's no time, but time exists in the fourth dimension.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I think this is where I don't know. This is just a hypothesis, but like, isn't that dimension the dimension of ideas? Ideas?
Yeah, well, it will hold, like Uranus holds, like you're gonna like this is an Aquarian. That's why I think you're going that rabbit hole. So Aquarius is ruled by Uranus and also Prometheus. But Uranus is the sky that holds everything. All the information, but it also holds all the memory, long-term memory. I don't know if you ever heard the word Akashic Record.
Yes,
so it's the library of every single thought ever in humanity. And sometimes you get these hunches, like intuition, stuff like that, and you get this like lightning ideas. Where do you think they come from? They come from that realm.
Right.
So sometimes
these flashes of insight.
Like you can train your mind. I'm a deep meditator, so I train my mind.
It always happens, not always, often happens after meditation.
Oh yeah.
Often. Yeah. Your mind is like blank if you're meditating properly. And then when you come out of it,
you know what I'm going to give you? I'm going to give you the you probably have it already, but this has changed my everything, because it's like, so the CIA used a technique by this guy called, I forgot his name, Robert Monroe. And it was to develop, like to make the spies be able to see across time, to do remote viewing. They released the tapes. They're amazing. This guy is a guy that I think it was in Virginia or in Georgia. I don't even know where the institute is. I think it's more like around Georgia. And so I was given by another Bitcoiner, actually he has the same birthday as you, Alondres. He gave me all the tapes a while back. And I started working with them. So what I like about these tapes is like he's using a lot of techniques that have been used. They're being used by the ancestral, but there's no guru, there's no religion, there's no spiritual stuff. There's no woo at all. It's only just techniques of how to use with headphones. He developed something called hemisync, that is how to balance the sound, the waves of the sound in your ear, so you can have the two hemispheres, the right and the left, in a balanced state. So you enter this state, alpha, then beta, then you enter the state of where you actually can grasp. Now he directs you and he teaches you how to self-hypnotize yourself. it teaches you, there's so many techniques. So I've been using it in a way where, like, for instance, I work with my fears, whatever, and I go, I'm going to work on this, and then I finish, and then I always wake up and I have my phone, and then sometimes I go, oh my God, that's how I made the book. It's just me, I'm bringing whatever.
Wow, just a conduit to the...
I'll give you the thing and you explore.
And people that have done ayahuasca and some of these other DMT experiences, they often talk about like accessing the Akashic records, like you go and tour the library.
Absolutely.
And there's this concept in the book, I got this is in the book, The Origin of Wealth, actually, where he talks about the nature of design space.
Yeah.
There's only so many possible combinations of things in the universe, basically. And that capitalism is like navigating that design space. And so if that's true, then the Akashic records might like be a real thing, right? It's like here's all the possible combinations of every physical
and that's
phenomenon.
where we're going next year with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was like, we have the progress chart.
Yeah.
And so right now you were born with the Aquarius sun, but every single day after you were born is going to count into a place where the chart was like X amount of years, whatever. If you're 38, 39, 40, you're going to be there, right? And so in your chart right now, you're a Pisces. Your sun is in Pisces, no longer Aquarius.
Oh, so what does that mean then? So the configuration, celestial configuration you're born under continues to move throughout your life.
Yes.
So that configuration is now in Pisces, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're progressing. And so that means that you're progressing. You're going.
Right.
You're going forward. And so things start happening. So right now you have, instead of having all this Aquarian energy, you have more like a Pisces. So you're dissolving. You're at the end of a cycle with humanity. We're in.
Does that mean the whole world is in Pisces right now? Or is that's specific to
you?
All right. Okay.
And then, but the whole world right now, we have Neptune, that is the planet that is related to spirit, and is the planet that is related to illusion and delusion. We have it 29 degrees right now. It's going retrograde, but next year it's going to go to first of Aries. That's a big deal. Saturn's going to go first of Aries. Uranus going to go Gemini. In February 2026, the world's going to be so different. And I received an information about a date that is the first, that's not the first, it's January 26, 2028. It's going to be a completely different thing. Because I've been getting a lot of information through those meditations. Okay. So, because I get numbers and dates and I look at charts. So I ask, what is it? And I cannot foresee the future, but what I've been told every day through my mom and other things is like, I have to create the destiny that I want with the knowledge that I have. And I have to propagate it and say, hey, you believe in yourself, trust yourself, be authentic. Come on, do your thing. Don't stay 3 hours criticizing the other. Do something productive, something like that. A little bit like what my mom used to say all the time. She was like, enjoy your life, but remember that your life depends on you. You're responsible. You're on your own. And she was very right. So the interesting thing is like we have I was giving some dates at the beginning of the year that they would give me a number, 1440. And I said, is that time? And they say, yes. And I said, but those are the hours of the day, the minutes in the day. Yeah, but it's not that. And I said, days? And said, yes. So I looked at the date. It was this January 26, 2028. And it's a very important day for the United States. My chart is completely, you're also around there because it's Aquarius. So the destiny of the United States, where it's coming from, it's Aquarius. So your chart is already charged. Like a lot of the people that were doing Bitcoin, we're really bringing forward another state of consciousness so we can liberate ourselves. We have to liberate this trauma of corruption, of taking advantage of people, or like this fake power. And how it's opening our hearts, dealing with stuff that we don't like, shaping our bodies and our minds and our spirits in a way that can be wholesome, and bringing the flag to the front and be courageous. You have to wear your heart in your chest. That's what a warrior does. Yeah. The word courage is heart. And the word, this is another word for Aquarians, is avant-garde. People who are Aquarian are avant-garde. They're beyond. So, but if you study military, the avant-garde is like the first two lines that were used in the military.
Front lines. Yeah.
Guess who the people are in the front lines? The more heroic. Yeah. Because they were there to defend something. If you fail that, you lose the war. That's the way the wars used to be fought, not like now. Now.
Led from the front. Right.
Yeah. So right now we have this date. So the day when they gave me the date, I was like, okay, look at the chart. And then I said, should I look back? Yeah. Guess what the day was? Beginning of pandemic. So I was just laughing because my chart is also very together with the World Trade Center. I had a studio at the World Trade Center as an artist, 91st floor. And it was my intuition that led me to get out of the building. I lost a lot of stuff, doesn't matter, but I kind of knew that day.
Your office was in the World Trade Center when it
not
collapsed.
my office. I was an artist,
yeah.
always, but they gave studios to artists up there for free.
Wow.
And I hated it. That place was like dead.
Yeah.
And so I went because I felt guilty that they were giving me this grant in this place. I hated it. And that night, I used to stay 2-3 days in a row. Smoker.
Yeah.
Gatorade. I was like really crazy person before. Weed, just staying there. My ex-husband calling like, when are you going to come home? I said, oh, bring me whatever. Yeah. That day he calls me. He goes, enough, Monika. He was always fighting. Like, when are you going to come home? I'm like, I'm always working. And so he said, I'm not going to pick you up. You come. Well, I took my bike. It was raining like crazy, like today. And I went, got all wet, got home. And before that, I took a camera with a storm because there was a thunderstorm, almost like a hurricane that day. I recorded from the window. And it was so beautiful what I recorded that I brought it. And I said, oh, I have to show you this. And I went to bed. Next morning, the whole thing happened. I live in Brooklyn Heights. I have
So you left the day before?
The night before, 4 hours before.
Wow, holy shit.
And so I look at the window because we get a phone call and say, Monika's there, yeah. And I look and I see the second plane going. And I remember I said to Juan, oh, this is war. This is terrorism. And he goes like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, pfft. And so I remember I pick up my phone and I said to my mom, where are you? And she goes, I'm at the office. And I said, hear me out. I am okay. I'm alive. And do not worry. I am not going to explain to you what's happening. I'm okay. I just need to make a lot of phone calls because the phones are going to get boom. And I did call a lot of people. I wanted to know if my peers were alive. One person died. I managed to organize people to meet from my group 2 days later in a place. I have this thing that I know. It's going to sound terrible, but when big things happen, the best person to have around is me. Because I completely know what to do. And so, but I realized that event happened. I had the video. I made a video. I'll send you the link later. And I named the video, it was September 10th, because that was the night before. You don't die the day of the eve. Because it was not my day. And when I look at my astrology, the day that happened was the day that the nodal axis, which takes 18 years and 6 months to go around, was exactly in the same position. So I started being very interested in astrology and the astrology of the United States and mine. I'm very linked to this country. And so instead of me running away right now, I'm going to go and live in El Salvador, whatever, or go back to Colombia. I was like, no, there's something about my energy that needs to stay here to bring people to another place of support. So I'm here to support people in what I do.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting.
Wow, that's amazing. I did not know that at all. Are you then, how do you feel about the stories that surround 9/11 now? Like, obviously most people, shouldn't say most people. Most people in our circles do not buy the what do we say, the narrative that's been fed to us about it. I don't know if that's even something you want to talk about.
Yeah, no, totally.
I figured maybe it's worth asking.
At the very beginning, because I got well known because of that. I got like my videos got on CNN, Barbara Waltz, like everybody wanted to get the footage. And so I did something very smart. I said, no, I'm not going to give you the footage. I'm going to make an art piece. And I was working with some musicians and I already was kind of established. So I knew how to work with this. And I said, like, I'm not going to get this piece butchered. It's going to be an art piece. And so I'm going to have ownership of it. And I'm only going to give like, I don't know, 10 seconds. Like, right now, a lot of videos go on X and then people like that. And I said, no. And they use. And I go, no. At that time, I used to be very like property rights and, intellectual property. Right now, I'm kind of like rethinking things after doing Austrian economics, but not there yet. So I decided to create a piece within 5 days. And somebody put it there, the New York Times, and then somebody else read about it. And then I was invited to many film festivals and everything. So for 2 years, I got a lot of people talking about it. I even had like the current Queen of Spain. She was a journalist. She came to my house to talk about it.
Wow.
So I was like talking about it, and I was like, am I going to get well known because of this? Because this is not. But so at the same time, the other media were calling me, the conspiracy theorists. Hey, do you have more footage? Because we need to know. And I was like, what? And so I started talking to them, and I was like, well, to be honest, I didn't like the fact that there was a plaque put into the building few weeks before. This is Larry Silverstein. I had a bad feeling in my, like, why is this guy? And then I start seeing stuff, and I said, everything makes sense. And then, you see the implosion and you go, okay. So, but then I let it be, because at that time, I mean, right now you can start talking about conspiracy theories, but like that time, you want my career to end, just say, blah.
Oh, yeah.
The irony is I was also working on another conspiracy theory that's the images that I lost, that they were printed, was the moon landing. I actually have a piece. That summer, there was a big deal about the moon landing was a hoax. That summer.
Yeah.
And I was like, but wait, I saw that.
Synchronicity.
And then, and then I said, I saw it, but I said, well, I was 4, my daddy, big TV with 2 legs, black and white, moving the antenna. And I'm going like, I want to be an astronaut. And he was like, oh yeah, first we just learned the name of the planets.
Yeah.
And then how do they make it to go there? Oh, a rocket. And so I was fascinated by it. So I said, this thing happened in my memory. And then, but the evidence is like, probably it isn't. It was Kubrick or all these things. So what I did is like, I bought, like at the time, NASA had all the footage online for free. I downloaded everything. And I have a movie. It's called Playing with Time. And I also hire a musician, and actually same people because I was doing that piece from the video of September 10. So so these films were made, and they were put in festivals, they were put in exhibitions, stuff like that. But this is actually just made that connection. I was working on that is about this thing that is not true. Then I'm in the building, and I have a footage of something that probably is not true. It happened. It's just like,
the narrative's not true.
And what is real, we don't know. And that's why I'm so fascinated with AI right now. Because we're going to change the history of the world.
Well, you think AI will then reinterpret a lot of these things?
Yeah, it's important. I'm working on projects right now with programmers, because I'm going to leave something behind. I want to make sure that the history is told the way that it preserves something and not eradicates. Yeah. Because that's where we're going.
Another thing that came up for me, that's very interesting. Another thing that came up for me, we were talking about meditation earlier. I attended a Joe Dispenza advanced meditation retreat in Nashville a year and a half ago now, 2 years ago.
And how did you feel?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a 7-day thing. I was struggling to get into it the first 4 or 5, 6 days. I was having good meditations, but there were people like having, spontaneous healings it's getting very out there. And I'm like, I don't know, this seems a little bit. And then the last day we have this electric meditation, and, we're in a room of 2,000 people. You're doing this whole sequence of breathing and moving. And then eventually you're laying on the floor meditating. And at some point, a man like, hundreds of yards across the room cries out like an emotion, like you just hear him like break. And at that moment when he broke, something like the divine energy just struck me, and I was like,
beautiful.
It was a very intense, like sublime moment where you almost had this glimpse through the eye of God where like everything was interconnected and good and evil were reconciled in a way, and it all just sort of made sense for like a split second. Like can't even bring it back or put it into words, but beautiful. Like, it's very intense. I'm physically shaking, crying but laughing at the same time. I'm like joyous but sorrowful. It was like very.
Do you think it penetrated part of the trauma? Like somehow, like it.
I was definitely on a good wavelength for a couple of weeks after that. Like I was just more released. Yeah,
something.
But
released. Yeah, no. He's.
So anyway, what I wanted to ask though, like that's a bit of a tangent, but it serves what I want to ask. Is there was someone? I wish I could give them attribution, but I don't recall the name of the individual. They suggested I was actually recognized by a lot of people at that event, because I guess a lot of people. Are you brother?
No, his brother.
A lot of people are into YouTube that are into Joe Dispenza, and I guess because I'm like, so anyways, I was recognized like a dozen times. But one of the people that recognized me said, you know what we need to do for Bitcoin, and maybe this is the only way to actually induce hyper-Bitcoinization, is we need to start a meditation, like a group meditation, that periodically we all meet and we meditate and we alter this reality.
Absolutely.
And I was like, well, shit, on the back of this very intense electric meditation experience, I was like, that's a great idea. We really need to do that. And then I never did anything with it. So what I wanted to ask is like, what do you think about that? Like,
I think it's a great idea.
Are there some legs to
and come in if you need
incorporating
anything.
the meditation practice with Bitcoin?
I think that there's so many practices that we can incorporate, and I say we because it's a we moment. And that's one of the impetus why I'm here, because I'm ready. I was a little bit hesitant about speaking. First, when I spoke about astrology and all this trauma and everything in the art world, people were like, "You gone crazy. I mean, what are they going to say? You're crazy." And I have a lot of people just like canceling me because of that. But I said no, because this has really supported me in ways that nothing else has, or nobody else for that matter. And so I do feel that the collective consciousness can be elevated, because we're talking about vibration. And I know it sounds like, oh, we have to elevate the no, it just sounds like if we can change the epigenetics or the atmosphere or the environment of something with tuning into something that is beyond ourselves. It's not a word. It's not my idea or your idea. It's actually, and he uses, I love Joe. I was part of that 5 years ago, of all of his recordings. I never went to a real retreat because I am very nervous with groups. I would have not lasted. I will be like, what? Like, I don't, but I did a lot of the retreats during the pandemic. And it served me so well. And I just love his work because he's very rational about it. He has a way of explaining things that is marvelous. And he is doing his thing. He came to do this. And his story is amazing. And he's good. Sometimes with these meditations, when he screams and yells, I go like, dude, like you get a little bit over the top. But I actually do not judge him, because I think he's doing a thing that is helping a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think, to respond what you're saying, is like finding the right... Okay, so how do we change the world? The world doesn't change. We transform ourselves, and therefore everything around us receives part of that transformation. And then you start resonating with people, go like, oh, maybe we should do a meetup. Maybe we should do that. Because you see, people meet talking about Bitcoin. I honestly don't go to those meetups because I don't want to talk about Bitcoin. I mean, I love Bitcoin, but I want to see how Bitcoin can be this technology that, as I think I wrote it and sent it to you, like it can serve the purpose for liberation. How can we use this technology that is actually liberating ourselves from pain, liberating ourselves from slavery, liberating ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually? I think that is a wonderful, but I would love to participate like I do. And this is another thing I'm going to tell you. I've been doing a lot, like, numerous amount of readings to Bitcoiners. Everybody has something that is Aquarius that I'm like, I have to write about this. Because I feel that Bitcoin
you're saying all the Bitcoiners you do have Aquarian.
It has the energy so strong. So strong. So that's why I feel like we're carrying information, because all this information is somewhere.
Yeah.
And
we're in the age of Aquarius.
Okay. But it's interesting because Aquarius is about rebelling, but you have to know how to rebel. Otherwise, you go to jail.
Sure.
Don't.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to learn to shoot, I mean, I was trained by a very good Taoist. He said, don't show your weapon. But if you have to defend your life, just take it out and behead the opponent. That's it. Yeah. You don't go, I'm going to kill you.
Sure. Yeah.
You pretend, the Taoist pretends to be dumb.
Yeah. Right.
What are you talking about?
It's one of the most intelligent things you can do, actually.
There's a saying, I think it's Zhuang Zhu, that says that the tree strives to be old because it's going to stay old and wise. But the tree that is like, cut me, wants to be a table, then becomes a table and is no longer a tree. Yeah. And this is what happens to us. Yes. We want to be so eager to be there. And at the end, it's like, I'm not a tree anymore. I'm just like a leg.
Yes.
Or like a spoon to cook.
I secretly admire that strategy because it's not one that I do. I don't. I feel like it's so funny. It's like people, meet and interact with people like, oh, you seem very intelligent. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not intelligent enough to appear not intelligent. It's like, I don't know how to actually play that
But that's
game.
not your path.
But I know people that do that and they do it so well. And it's like, they're just like, they come off as like the everyday, like Joe Rogan would maybe be an example of this.
Yeah.
He just comes off as like this very every guy kind of dude, just, but he's hyper intelligent. Obviously he's
so curious.
Comedian.
That is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And I just admire, I don't know, just always admired that.
But the interesting thing is like when you embrace your own uniqueness, then you know that's the whole story about the tree. Is that it's not like you admire, like you, of course you can see the qualities in Joe Rogan, but what about the ones that you have that you are developing? Because that's when you become your own tree.
That's right.
Because if you want to become like him, not necessarily that you do, then you are the table.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like,
that's where you're back to intuition and listening to your heart. And that's what I'm trying to do is like, I just follow my curiosity, listen to my heart. Yeah.
And I do something else. I don't know, like it's called like, I have to show you. I don't know if I have that. It's based on astrology and it's also based on the I Ching. The Taoist I Ching, the Vedas, the centers, and the Kabbalah, the streams. So the way we read this is like, this is really working a lot for your energy to see if you're making the right decisions for your body. And you're not supposed to, according to the chart, you're not supposed to make decisions with your head. What you have to do is observe two things every time that you're going to make a real decision. One, you have an emotional body. So emotions are like a wave. And with a wave, you never know if there's in the high or the low, because the moment you realize it's already at the other side. So I think you're old enough to remember when we're starting to send images online, and you could see half of the picture, and you saw, oh, that's a giraffe, and then at the end of the download is a motorcycle, something like that.
Right.
So this is how emotions work.
Okay.
If you have to make deep decisions, and you say yes, because that's where you are in the wave, and then the next day you're in the place, and you go like, what the hell am I doing here? So it's observing how you respond to the wave that is going to really be supportive for you long-term, big decisions in your life.
Okay, so take more time with
yes,
big decisions?
Yes, time. Okay. Time is, and time will give you one thing, clarity.
Got it.
Because it's like looking at the ocean. It's like, okay, or like being in a boat with the fog. Yeah. You can make like decisions that are like, 5 meters or something like that, but you cannot really go like, oh, we're in the right place, all right. So that's important. But you also have the spleen, which is when I saw you have this connected and you have like a sense of smell. The spleen is that organ that helps us in human design, help us understand our immune system. So you're here, you have a defined energy that you know what is good and bad for you, and that's an instinct. So I asked you before about your smell. Like, can you sense bullshit? And you say yes, and that's there. And you also have a sense of taste in the eye, so you can see when things are not properly working. So never underestimate that when you get in a new place, in a relation, whatever, like day to day, because this is actually logical, and this is always going to tell you no. The logical stream never is going to say yes. The logical say no, don't do it, and let's try to find a pattern here. Right. So with food or with like things, you go like, this doesn't feel good, and you just don't enter that because you smell. Oh, it smells like, and then especially with people, like,
oh yeah,
like
for
that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's good. Then you have a lot of energy here from here. So the one is the root. So that's the fuel. So part of the fuel in your life is to feel joy about how to make things better.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of energy. You're sacral. So you're what they call generator. So you're like, imagine a generator. So the way you also have to respond to things with time is also to see if whatever you're going to embark is going to give you satisfaction. Otherwise, if you feel that you're frustrated, that's not the right thing for you.
Okay.
The frustration is always going to be like a meter. You go like, how did I get? Because sometimes you respond to, yes, I want to do it, but then maybe you didn't take the right time.
Right.
And then you're like, oh God, I have to finish that. And
so
then
frustration is an indication that you're on the wrong path.
You are on the wrong path.
Because I'm frustratable, actually.
Like you are?
Yeah. So it's, what is it? Where does it often come up? In like inefficiency. So if I'm doing, this is why I have the state is very annoying to me and frustrating to me. Like when you're filling out forms, for instance, right? You fill out your name and address on form 1, And then they ask you for name and address again on form 2.
Okay.
I'm like, how has no one looked at this? And
because that's a correction in you. You go like, this could be fixed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the inefficiency thing.
Yeah, you're able to see it, but then you can drive yourself crazy because, my question to you is like, okay, we need to fill the form. So are you going to fix it right now? You're going to go over there, smack the person, say to everybody, we're not going to do the second form. Or you're going to go,
it's so,
I'll find a way.
It's such a weird thing because I know there's nothing I can do about it. It's like, all I can do is fill out the damn form if you want to do the thing. But
you can get out of
part of me that's underneath. It's just like,
but I don't know if we're going to do this, but on camera or something like that. But there are ways to get out of the system.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like real ways.
Selectively compliant.
Yeah. So, but there are ways and interesting ways to just like be your own person. So
we had a guy in here the other day that's completely off grid.
Right.
There's nothing. Yeah.
I'm studying that because it's language.
Yeah.
It's the way you actually start understanding what we're living. The narrative is all a lie.
Yeah.
And you're abiding by it. And so it's how much complaining you can do about like tax and theft.
Yeah.
If you're still like the slave.
Exactly.
So these are contracts that you actually accept.
Yeah.
And there are ways to, and I knew that, for instance, like I started kind of looking into this during the pandemic. Of course, I didn't get the vax. I moved from New York. I had a very big contract with the city of Boston for a piece at the East Boston Police Department. And when I signed the contract, there was no such a thing. But then when they wanted me to be there to install, they were requiring like a lot of stuff. And I'm like, there's no way in hell that I'm going to do that. So I reach out to these people that, they're somewhere in the dark web. Although they're more visible right now, which is great. And they gave me some forms that I was laughing so much about it because it was like, the only authority of the land is God.
Mm-hmm.
And then is the human, and then is the whatever rules you want to put. So under that authority, I'm not going to wear a mask and I'm not going to, and I actually send a letter to the mayor of Boston and they say, okay. And I was like, what? And then I said, okay, when I come back and everything, I want to study this. Because if this is just for the mandates or whatever they're doing, imagine with all the other things. And that's the way. So, but everybody should meet that at their own pace.
Yeah, of course.
Because there can be implications and people, and I don't think a lot of people have, to be honest, the balls to do it.
Yeah, there are risk and consequences and trade-offs and complexities and costs and all these things, but ultimately you can define your own reality as a human being.
Absolutely. And the reason why I think it's very important, for instance, for the Bitcoiners to know about Praxeology and Austrian economics is because if we're going to build a new civilization, how are we going to do that without principles?
Yes.
Hello? It's like...
I want to go back to something you said way earlier where you talked about in the meaning of incarnation being in the flesh. And that is praxeology, right? It's the logic of human action, basically. So it's where logic, the very abstract domain, rational domain of logic meets the purely embodied, real, visceral experience of
living,
sensory, motor movement.
Yep.
And they are merged together in action, basically. And people that have never heard of praxeology probably don't know what the fuck we're talking about. But it's a very deep rabbit hole, right? And what
it's the study of human behavior.
The study of human, purposeful behavior. Yeah. So it's like humans, everything you do as a human, you're purposely choosing means to pursue ends that you value.
Yeah.
Right?
And if you look at the root, praxis in Greek is like action.
Yes.
And it's like actually a practice. When you say, I'm in the practice of this, you're in a praxis.
Practice.
And logos is like you're becoming the practice of action. You're actually.
And what I was getting, so maybe a simple way to think about it is like we are goal-oriented animals, right?
Yeah.
But we use cognition,
the
right?
Frontal lobe.
What do the Taoists say? There's many paths to the top of the mountain, right? And the one definition of intelligence is the ability to choose different means in pursuit of same ends. It's like that's what action is, basically. It's like we're figuring out, I'm at A, I want to be at B. What paths are available to me, right? And then how do I actually employ these different means? And so the reason I think that's so valuable, and this is what I kind of wanted to ask you about, and you said it actually, to come to terms with what we actually are, right? To realize how we actually operate.
Yes.
You realize, and in doing so, you realize how the world actually operates.
And that's your gift to the world because you are becoming the light of what you came here by surrendering to it, not giving much.
So if we're all these creatures on goal-directed, purpose-driven paths, there's a lot of us, so we inevitably come to cross purposes at times. We have to resolve those disputes. That's why we have all these social constructs like private property and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so giving people that framework for understanding what it's like to be human, it unravels so many of these other mysteries.
But that's the myth of Prometheus. So as an Aquarian, you are with your own path, enlightening your path for your truth, because that's what you're seeking. We're all seeking that. Some people are more evident than others, and some people have more courage than others. So by you doing your own enlightenment or your path of just individuation, you're actually giving the spark to the rest of the world. But you cannot do, and this is one thing that is important, Bitcoin or anything, and this, love or money, whatever whatever abstraction you want to put, that is not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
It is the action that you take and how you relate to that and how you become accountable, responsible.
Yeah.
And this is like, for instance, I like Jordan Peterson. I just think that in his astrology, you can actually tell that he has a lot of rage and delusion.
Sure. What was the second one?
Delusion.
Oh.
He can be very delusional, but then he has this one thing. The first time I heard him, I was like, I want to do his chart. And he was like, oh my God, it's there. So he has this Chiron and Jupiter in the 11th house. So you see how he cries and he's real about it.
Yeah.
But he also makes people feel. So that's his gift.
Yeah.
Now he has to go through his own demons. That's what he's been doing. So for me, he's a very I don't like or dislike him. I think that he has given the world a lot of possibility, but he's still human. Yes. We cannot put him as a he's still Prometheus. He's not the god.
Yeah.
He's tied up to the
Sure. He's
we're all
tied
up to the
shadow work and
absolutely. So it's about integrating that. And we all have that purpose, and we all have a different timing where we're going to do it. And we are sometimes going to meet, and I'm going to meet with you right now, and I'm giving you the gift of this, and you're giving me another thing, another gift. And that's how we meet as human beings.
Yes.
And we can actually resonate or not. Sometimes the meetings are for 1 second, sometimes are for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Sometimes you choose them as your parents. Sometimes you choose them as something, as your partner. Sometimes you choose them, actually you don't. They stumble upon, and that's what life is. And it's just embracing that awkwardness and that vulnerability. I think that Bitcoin could be a place where if we accept our vulnerabilities.
Yeah, the vulnerability is such a big one, because again, that's in radical truth and romantic relationship. It forces you to disclose and communicate your vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Which is difficult.
Yes.
But in doing so, you establish authentic connection with your partner. And on the flip side is like, those are the things you fall in love with, which is strange. It was like when she's vulnerable, like she's, disclosing something to me that I can tell, I was like, oh, this is actually, that's the thing you're like in love with, right? It's like, you might be attracted to this, that, and the other, but it's like, well, you fall in love with the vulnerabilities, the imperfections of that person.
Absolutely. Because you see yourself in the other. You see relationships of any kind, not only with intimate, but friends or anything that is relatable. And this is a lot of shadow work. And we spoke about how people project that because they have a different relationship with themselves when they see you, something like that. But relationships are the most important thing in this third dimension because we are made out of magnetism. And so we have a polarity. You like it or not, there is dark and there is light. It's not like, oh, I'm going to take, that's why polarization doesn't work, because it's not integration.
Yeah.
So we're here as humans, and this chart and these things help to do something called the synthesis or the integration, where you're actually going to take one and the other, and you're going to confront yourself with it, and what it emerges, it's your synthesis. And what emerges in you is different than what emerges in me, and also the different time. So we're all the time on an emergent moment of realizing what that thing that we're relating to in that moment is telling us or giving us. So if the person is your loved one or your mother, and you're having a dispute with somebody, or you're going to the supermarket and getting those are moments of emergence.
Yes.
That if you understand shadow work, oh, I should give light to that thing that I hate.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, like this likes me very much, so I'm going to get addicted to it. and you go like, maybe I should not be so codependent, because likes, too much likes also can create a little bit of unbalance.
Yes.
So the idea is to have that ability to be free from addiction.
Yeah.
And free from also being afraid of not being addicted, because that can be also a thing. Like you're afraid, like if you see an addiction in your house, for instance, like I have personally my brother and my one person that is married to my sister as well. So I saw addiction young, but my brother is amazing. He's going to be 33 years this year, or 34, sober. And the way he grew like out of that pain is like, I love him so much, because he became vulnerable. But the other people that I've seen close with addiction, they don't get it. And some people, they don't make it. So it's there. We all have it in our families, in our environment. So we got to be compassionate, but also help. I also offer support to the people who are, and this is in my webpage when I do readings, when I do something. If you're willing to commit to your own self, the commitment is not with me, it's with you. I'll meet you there and we will establish something. But if I'm going to do the homework for you, guess who's going to show up? I'm not going to show up, and you're not going to pay me any money, and I don't care. Because I don't want codependencies. I want people to be accountable. And I think that Bitcoin can give you that. But we are at that moment, that's why of the meditation, where we can expand that. Not everybody's going to come this way, believe me. Some people go like, meditation, this people are crazy. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know? Or to your retreat. Not everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Eat, be lean? No, I like my donut. Yeah. Fine. You know, like it's there's space for everybody.
Yeah, of course. And it's, you were selectively calling to people that want to heed the call, right? It's
and they resonate with you, because that's what, like when you went to Dispensa, there was something about Dispensa that you resonated with that made you go.
Yeah.
Pay the money and stay there, because that you survived the 7 days, whatever. It's like,
and I wish I had been a little more immersed in the experience, because I was living in Nashville at the time, so I was not staying in the hotel. I was driving home at night.
Okay.
And so
that created a disruption.
People were saying, they're getting up at 3:30 in the morning to start these meditations. I'd show up at 7,
Yeah, okay.
So I wasn't getting the full immersion, which is, I do intend to go to another one, and I will go to one out of my hometown.
Yes.
So that I will be fully immersed.
Nice.
I'm sorry, I have to go back to this though, because you're giving me kind of this maybe epiphany,
you having fun?
Revelation. This idea of coming to terms with, praxeology allowing us to come to terms with what it means to be human, to be a purposeful actor. That phrase, to come to terms, right? To come to terms with something, we typically think, that means acceptance. Right, it's like to accept something, but there's also this idea. Again, there's the multiple meanings, or the polysemy of language here. Because to come to terms with something maybe is to accept it, but it's also in business. Well, you come to terms in a contract, right?
Yes.
There's specific points of agreement.
Yeah.
So there's the acceptance component, which is sort of the more idiomatic meaning. There's the more professional sense of this phrase, which is, actually coming to an explicit agreement where I expect you to do this, you expect me to do that, right? And then there's this third one that's terminology, like words, right?
Yeah.
The words themselves are these little points of agreement.
Yes.
And so we are, it's just kind of a microcosm for how we actually construct this social reality, that we have to have ways of aligning and according how we expect one another to act over time. And so when you say to come to terms with, it's like it has all these things baked into it, that it's acceptance, it's words, and whatever the third one was.
But I'm telling you, this is really good what you're saying, because this is when the whole astrology chart with all the archetypes start playing with themselves. So when I say coming to terms, in a way, you can use another word that is a little bit like, you got to think about it beyond the what we think it is surrender. Which is not giving up. Surrendering is like, okay, let's say that I am very discerning, and I see where things are not working, and I want to correct that.
Yeah.
But there's no way. That's it. You can't correct it. So you basically don't give up. You surrender. There's no way that I can correct it.
So you're being realistic in a way.
Yeah, in a way. But you surrender. You go, okay, I embrace it.
Yeah.
It's okay. There's going to be another thing that I can do. So in that part, like you're using the polarity of Pisces and Virgo.
You're being practical, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's surrender, because Pisces is like, hey, dude, let it go.
Yeah.
And close, forgive, like, just whatever. Then the other part that is very important in any relationship that you have is that you know what your value is. Mm-hmm. And this is super important also in praxeology. It's like value is subjective and people don't know what they value. Mm-hmm. What you value is different what I value. And we all have a different sense of values and needs, and we don't know because we're not taught that those are the most like basic things that people have to know. Mm-hmm. How can you negotiate some terms without knowing your leverage?
Sure.
How do you say yes to things without even knowing what that implies?
Right.
So this is important because, like, if you understand what your value is, and this is like really what went with
and your
me.
Values are.
Yeah, values.
Both. Yeah.
But so what you value and is essential is going to give you the information. Yes. That's where the third thing, where you kind of study and see, okay, I'm going to give value to this thing, and this is going to acquire a meaning. And with meaning,
you can terminology.
Yes, but meaning is also create social contract.
Yes.
So you end up being with the right people in the meetup, and then going and doing the same thing. And sometimes, and if you're aware, then you're moving forward. But if you're like party, then you're moving. It's all okay. I'm not judgmental towards anything that people do. People do whatever they have to do, because awakening or figuring it out takes all forms. Like I'm not like awareness is like comes in very different colors.
Yes. That's so good. That just to maybe take it. I've talked about this before, but it seems appropriate now. But the meaning of the word meaning, actually. So there's, the classic question: what is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
And in that sense of the word meaning, you're invoking significance, right? What is the purpose or significance of life? Then there's the meaning of the word meaning, where you say, like, you accidentally bump into someone and say, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, my intention.
Yeah. Your the outcome of your action diverged from the intention, right? Yeah. So there was, you didn't intend to do that.
But you weren't aware.
Yes. So exactly. So it's significance, intention, and then meaning as in the informational sense, right? The meaning of praxeology is the study of human action, or the science of human action, whatever it may be.
The definition.
Yeah, the definition. Exactly. So that all maps right back onto this acceptance, agreements, and words things, right? That you have these coming to terms with is not only defining, but also accepting, and also, what is it? It's accepting. Coming to terms with is acceptance, coming to terms with establishing agreements with other people.
And inquiring.
Yeah, about how can I expect you to act into the future? How can you expect me to act, right? We're going to have moral codes that define this, legal codes that define this, all these things. And all of that's built in language, basically.
But very important, if you have your own sense of the good relationship with your values, and everything is written in terms, there's no expectation that is not beyond that. So you don't create expectations that are not real. And that's what happens in a lot of relationships. Oh, I thought you were going to say that. Oh, I thought you were going to know that I was upset. Right. That's an expectation. Mm-hmm. That's not reality.
But you have to have them as well.
Well, that's
because you expect your partner not to cheat on you, for instance.
Of course, but these are aspirations.
Yes.
Like you aspire, you go, okay, these are the rules, and this is interesting because we're speaking about Jupiter and Capricorn, or Sagittarius and Saturn. These are the planets, and so the interesting thing is like anything that is belonging to ideologies and ways of behavior, like a rule of conduct. It's all Sagittarius and Jupiter, and this is like how people had got organized in order to set up a set of rules. So they went to church, they created the rules, the Bible, whatever. Like there's a code of conduct, and that's that. But then somebody has to do the building and create a structure with some hierarchy, and that's Capricorn or Saturn. Now, we have arrived at that point in the world right now where these two things, social constructs, are so corrupted that we basically, I think we have to uproot the shit out of it. It's like, and then see what's it.
You got to build the new, right?
Oh, totally.
Which
and that's how Bitcoin is bringing. But Bitcoin won't happen until people do not embrace their trauma. And that's why I'm so excited to say, like, hey, everybody who's a Bitcoiner, go to another astrology. You don't come to me and look at your Aquarius. You're going to know, like, oh, because we are here to go to the other side. You see, Aquarius is about going to another unknown place. We have the courage.
Yeah.
We are the courage. And we have to see in which places we're still slaves. Because that slavery comes from other lives where we abided and said, yes. Why? Because we're afraid of showing our authenticity. And this is what Gabor Mate says all the time. He says, this is the whole thing of Gabor says this. When you give away your authenticity for security, that's where the trauma lives.
Right. Yes.
You are afraid of not having a job.
You're operating out of fear rather than love.
Yeah. And you're afraid to show yourself. And believe me, when you, and you probably have proven this times, when you show yourself who you are like that, some people say, oh my God, you're so good. Yeah. You're just not doing it in purpose to be like, you're just you.
Yeah.
You're embodying that
once
light.
Again, it's like it's the people that try to follow the formula to become an influencer, right? Where they're like, let me post what gets clicks and see what's hot and trendy and do this. Like, you're playing this whole game to try to get attention. You're never going to succeed at your aim.
No.
But if you stay really true to the thing that you actually care about and you're actually passionate about, regardless of who's watching, that is the path that will actually take you there.
Absolutely.
And so I love how you put that. What did you say about authenticity and security?
So this is Gabor, so I have to give him a credit. So Gabor says that when you give away your authenticity, that ability to reconnect to what is disconnected, that inner child, and you give it away because you're afraid of losing a job, losing a marriage or studies and whatever.
To do what's safe and secure.
Yeah. So you got to follow yourself. And that's a very difficult thing to do because we're not taught to do it. Now, there are tools, dispensa, body work, somatic. I mean, really, I can give you a list of I mean, it's just a question of like jumping on the boat.
Yeah.
So people have a choice. We have free will.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then there's the scientific rooting and all of that is praxeology in a way. So you get all these tools and you'd be like, well, this sounds woo-woo. Like, okay, well, if you want to ground it in rationality, go study praxeology. Like,
the day I was in class and I said something to Saif and I said, I'm a psychic. I said a word. He says, are you a psychic? And I said, that too. Just went like, okay. I basically am able to hear things and see things since I was little. So I used to be very scared. And then I realized that that's probably consciousness. So my consciousness was always in the second floor. And there were like a bunch of dudes with long, like almost like Greek looking, going like, shouldn't be doing that. And I was like, who's hearing? Nobody. And then with time and meditation, I started like really getting in touch with that side of consciousness. And it's beautiful because I have changed the form of that to my mother. And this has come together in the last few months, if not weeks, is that my mother is speaking to me in a way that she says, look, don't look for me anymore the way you're looking for, because first she told me after she died that if you miss me, I'm in your siblings. Oh, I cried. I was like calling I have to call you because mom said that you're with me. And he was like, yeah, we were both crying. And it was so beautiful. And then a few months later, it's like, mommy, okay, come on, where are you? Because she's there with me all the time. And then she says, I'm with your dad. Can I have fun? And I'm like, remember, you are part of us both. And I said, yes, that's true. Lately, mommy, come on. You're having too much time, a good time. Where are you? And she goes, I am with God and God is inside of you. I was like, boom. This is the first time in my life, and I'm not religious in the way I like the church, but it's the first time I actually understood the meaning of having God inside.
Yeah.
Because I connect to her energy.
Yes.
So it's something familiar.
Yes.
But at the same, I love my mother so much. It's like she showed me what love is totally. Because I actually felt like how I came through her. It's very weird.
The definition of spirit, I think maybe it's Heidegger. He said that spirit is the I that is in we and the we that is in I. And so this pattern, the word spirit gets thrown around and people think once you say that word, you're like off the reservation into woo-woo land, but it's not. It's you're describing that what did Tesla say? That if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration. So this idea of a pattern that's propagating through different substrates is spirit, right? Like your thoughts become your feelings, become your actions, become the world, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
What for someone? I lost my mom earlier this year, and you've talked a lot about how you communicate with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
How can people approach this?
Reconnection.
And to be clear, I'm sort of always trying to balance this out too, right? It's like we're off kind of in woo-woo land talking about astrology and meditation and things, but it's also trying to ground it in praxeology.
Absolutely.
Even if this is there's no actual connection to an eternal whatever, like could just be within your own psyche, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're just interacting with your own representation of your mother, whatever it is. How can someone deepen their interaction with people that have departed?
A good question. I'm going to do a preamble. Like in Greek, I always go back to the Greeks because they're like the basis of a lot of stuff in Western civilization. So the Greeks said the name of spirit is nepma. Which is like the lungs. So it has a lot to do with breathing.
Breath.
Yeah. And that thing is spirit. And spirit means to inspire, to breathe. So we are living between two breaths. End of the story. This is materiality.
Right.
You're born, and then you die. Oh, last breath.
Yeah.
That's it. Then we have the psyche, which is, as in psychology, that's our soul.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a spirit energy. That is the whole, the alpha and the omega. You call it God. God, I don't care about what you call it. And when we are here incarnated, a part of that spirit kind of comes down, let's say that this is down and this is up, whatever, but it goes into this realm with the soul, and the soul remembers. So we have that. Now, some people are more in tune with their spirit than others, but that doesn't mean if you're not in tune, doesn't mean you don't have a spirit. It's just you're not in that frequency. You're listening to another station. It doesn't matter. And then at the very end, what makes our perception be recognizing all these things is our ego. And ego, a lot of people have like a lot of bad connotation with it. Comes from Greek, the word ego. It's I am, egoime. So this is the way I can perceive with what you were saying at the very beginning with the senses. This is the only way. And with my emotions, I can actually make sense of this vehicle that is my body, to see if I'm going to go in the front or the back, because both the instincts, the senses, and my emotions are going to show me if I'm going well on the road, I'm actually off the road. So everybody has a different way to connect to their spirit. So some people pray. Some people go to church and pray, and they believe in that. Now, for me, the word believe is a little bit like I expanded a little bit, because we are so taught up to the idea, like if you believe in one thing, and then if you believe in something else that you feel connected to and that is not part of the canon, then it's wrong. And that's, again, that's the church. It's not really spirit.
Dogmatism.
Yeah, that's like the dogma. So for me, it's like if you can have the, how do you say the word, like the honesty and the sincerity to connect to your spirit, all you have to do is close your eyes and say, hello, anybody there?
Yeah.
And believe me, something's going to happen. So there are ways of doing it. I pray/meditate. And I say I pray because prayer, sometimes it's a mantra that I repeat. I do a lot of polyvagal.
Okay, what is that?
Polyvagal is a nerve that is it's quite amazing. This is the longest nerve that we have from
the vagal nerve. Okay.
The vagal.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And it comes and it regulates your nervous system.
Yeah.
So it's the eye is part of it. And so it goes all the way like that. And so I do a lot of humming. Okay. That's why a lot of like this ancestral how to say, like things, rituals, they have the singing, the mantras, because that's a way of regulating your nervous system.
Activating it, yes.
So I have the vagal, I do different kinds of stuff. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's here. But then when you enter in this state where you are totally connected to your body, again, your body, so you're breathing and you're connected to the breath. And then the thought comes, it's like, shit, this is too long. And you go, you know what? it's good that I'm thinking about you. Because if you try to push the thought, it's not going to happen, right? So then you start engaging. For me, for instance, when I give advice about what to do, I go start with humming. Start with something that actually is making you do something. I don't know if you ever done the Wim Hof stuff. Okay, so the Wim Hof, like powerful. The breathing, when you're breathing, you're not thinking.
That's right. This is why I love fitness, by the way. Physical fitness is just like, spend all day working with the mind. You need an hour out of the mind.
And the body is just so responsive of it. I was more into it. Like I was hardcore marathoner, like hardcore faster, like hardcore. But I'm in the moment right now, 60 years old. It's like, you know, I do calisthenics every day. I swim every day. I am carnivore 100%. I'm like I don't do farming. Like I take care of myself. And sometimes I go like, maybe should I go to the gym? I was like, oh, I'm way past that idea. Because I did it already. Yeah. And I can be very intense. Yeah. So I kind of like, maybe.
Yeah.
But when I see you doing it, I was like, yes.
Yeah, well, for now, you know.
No, exactly. Yeah. For now. But it's very commendable. Some people never even try it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you got to do it.
Yeah. So connecting to something, you just, somebody, I do tell this to my friends or people that I know. I said, do you have a dead person in your life? What? Talk to her. What? Just bring him up. He or she will come.
How do you do that? Is it in prayer or in meditation?
I do it with humor.
Okay.
So I kind of go like, where are you hiding? You know, I kind of like do it like if it was real.
Yeah.
So
and you're saying it out loud.
Yeah, I say, hey, Mom, you're not there. Guess what? I have like, for instance, before coming here, like even before, like I'm very much at ease here, but when I have to do things and I do a lot of talks in front of people, I just close my eyes and I say, Mommy, she goes, you're going to be fine. Just be you. And I know that she's speaking to me. Maybe it's me speaking to me. Maybe I'm crazy. But I feel her love. Yeah. It's just like, just be you, just be you. So I basically opened that channel some years ago before my mother died. My father died when I was very young, and that was very traumatic for me. And I did something very Aquarian, disassociated. Don't want to feel that. The change of school. Didn't tell anybody for 4 years that my father was dead because I was ashamed of not having a father. Can you believe it? I'm 8 years old and I'm ashamed. And that created this, but he was a big avid reader and stuff. So I just took his books and that's trying to find him. That's how I find philosophy and all that. But I was like that. And so I never really connected to him, never went to the cemetery. I didn't even go to the funeral. I just made my imagination that didn't happen. Want to leave Colombia. Mom, you're the worst. You stayed, he left. I was an angry child. Long story short, 10 years ago, I'm at my sister's and she has a picture of my father and I don't have a picture of my father because I'm very disconnected. And she says, oh, I just spoke to him today. And I'm like, what? You talked to him? She goes, I asked him everything. And I said, and she goes, try. And I said, okay. So I started doing simple stuff. I'm in the studio and I don't have my assistant or something and I live to live something. I go, Dad, yeah. And he was like, okay, let's do it. And he started doing it. Like the way I found my apartment here in Miami, everything. I said, can you find me this? Can you find me that? So I just do the list. And he's always there.
Wow.
Until my mother was like, your dad is also here. I'm like, yeah, but right now I'm going to overuse you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit of believing a little bit in something that is bigger than you. Like for me, I'm not that arrogant to think that I'm here only one lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think that I'm part of a bigger thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
I do feel that.
And yeah, if you really reduce it down, it's like we don't even have a philosophical definition of the line between living and non-living. So it's like even when we say someone dies, it's like
I say passing.
Yeah, I mean what they're composed of gets recycled back into this giant process that we call reality. I mean, it's not like there's no binary really. I mean, obviously there's a binary in terms of like the conscious being that we interact with, but to think that they're just gone, it's like, no.
Do you connect with your mother?
Well, that's what I was asking actually, is like how I reflect now. I think since she's passed, I reflect more on. She used to call me a lot, you know, as moms tend to do.
Yeah.
She'd leave me a lot of voicemails. She had a lot of these aphorisms she would share. I would often I'm from Tennessee, so I would often call it redneck wisdom, you know?
Yeah.
So all these little sayings like.
Beautiful.
let me just pick one. Like, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet, things. She just like, what does that mean? It's like, oh, you just got to tough it out. Or she'd say things like, well, you do the math. It's like, well, you got to figure it out for yourself. And it's like, it just sounds ridiculous. But then these things like permeate
absolutely
your being and who you are. And you like get into a situation and you find yourself like, oh, well, I just need to do the math and figure, and so since she's passed, I've found myself reflecting more on those things that she said. It's like when that is a kind of a discrete change. When someone passes, they're never going to say any more words. It's like whatever they've said, whatever they've done is sort of just like statically kind of frozen into their legacy.
Guide you.
Right, but your relationship with those things can still change over time. So it almost like gives me more of an appreciation. Whereas like when she's alive and she's calling me and she's leaving me, I was like, oh, my mom's leaving me another voicemail. Now I like have these voicemails. I don't delete them off my phone. I'll listen to them and I was like,
Me too. I wish I had like, I was always very like, mom, no, like very independent. Yeah. And then the last year she had Alzheimer's. So I kind of like softened up a little bit. And even the last year, she had a stroke, and then I went over there, and it was difficult to see her, but it was a very incredible moment. The last moment I saw her, she was already with the stroke in the hospital. They had said that she was going to die that night. She didn't. She lived 47 days without water or food. She waited for every child, one of her children, to go over there and make peace with her. And I took I used tuning forks, and I used a lot of things for sound. And I just went over there. I hate hospitals, but I went over there. And I was like, I'm going to protect myself. I took the Bible, Psalm 91, beautiful Psalm, open it up. Couldn't put a candle there because I was afraid it was going to fall. And then, whatever. She dies in a fire because so I just put the room in a way where like brought stuff where she would be protected and taught the people who were taking care of her how to like play this tuning forks. Even my brother and everything. And I said, I know this is a little bit crazy, but you just have to follow because I know that she will listen to us. And so it was incredible. She lost her way of speech, but she only had one eye. And I will talk to her and I said, just do like that. So we were doing this and it was incredible. So I stayed a few weeks and then there's a moment I have to leave. And actually I wanted to leave. I'm the kind of person who doesn't want to wait until the end. I'm like, okay, let's do it. I said, Mom, that's it. I have exactly half an hour to get to the airport. That's it. And she just stood up and she looked at me and she tried to talk. And it was so profound because I said, am I going to be okay? And she was like, yes, you are already okay. And she talked. She couldn't talk. So I said, okay, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of my siblings in the way, not taking care of them, but like letting them know that you are in me and everything. So I don't want to take care of them in the way like, but I want to assure you that. And she was okay. So September 10th comes that weekend. And this is July, August, September 10th. And I knew she was going to die September 10th around because of her chart. And September 10th is the anniversary of my video that says, you don't die the day of the eve. So I basically called my mom that day. She's in the room. And I said to my brother, we have a very good sense of humor in my family. My mother was so funny. So I said, I'm sorry. She's going to die today because she's going to ruin my video. So I said, Mommy, can you wait another day? And she died the next day. She died on September 11th.
Holy shit.
They called me. I was at the pool and I was about to get into the pool. And then I said, I went back and my phone is ringing and he says, we're ready. And I was like, okay, give me a second. I have to go upstairs. Yeah. So I didn't want to be in the pool. And so they lift her up and she's just there breathing. And so I saw my mother take the last breath.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you one thing. It was like giving birth. So I saw, talking about inspiration and aspiration and breath, I saw my mother birthing death. You know how powerful that was? It was like she was back with God or whatever, like she's with the angels or whatever you want to. So I was like, oh, and I said, thank you for giving us those 47 days because I think she was doing something that the Buddhists call the bard. She was preparing her body. She was preparing her soul to go back to the body of God, the spirit, and getting rid of everything. So she had no food, no nothing, 47 days. And
wow.
So I do feel that she's really somewhere. I mean, I don't want to call her in the angelic form, but she got it at the end. She did.
Wow.
And that's the gift that she says to me that I should give to the world. Like just give joy and hope. And I'm super optimistic. I do see hope despite the craziness, but we got to do the work.
We got to do the work. Wow, that is a beautiful story. I think a beautiful place to bring it to a close.
Thank you, Robert. This was, I mean, we can go forever. One day I'll tell you more, but I think you have
No, we'll share some of the images.
Yes.
And we'll maybe link to the entire presentation for those that are interested. And thank you for talking to me about this esoteric, wild stuff. There's the world is just so. I'm reminded of something that maybe it was Newton at the end of his life. Isaac Newton, right? The guy that genius and among geniuses, and he said by the end of his life, I hope I'm attributing this to the right person, that he thought that everything he had learned in his life up until that point, he was still just playing with pebbles by the seashore. And then there was just this vast ocean of the unknown in front of him. And it's like, that's the world we're living. That's reality. So it's like we think we've got things figured out, or, there is no God, or there is this, or there is that, or there's not this. It's like, just chill out a little bit, right? Like we don't know. Just knowledge itself is kind of provisional and it can't contain everything. Just be a little more humble, be a little more kind.
Take time.
Take time.
Take time to breathe. And the breath is the most important way to connect to your spirit. That's it. You don't need a lot of ornament around.
Yeah.
And to finish, esoteric means inside. Exos is outside. So whatever you have inside, that's your jewel. And we're always looking for everything outside of ourselves. Just look inside. Thank you so much.
Yes,
really, this was a joy.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.